The Nothin Good monologue. A process by Dave O'Mac. See, a good monologue to kick off a Nothin Good podcast always starts with a brainstorming session. That brainstorming session brings together a number of different ideas. And then you kind of go through, you pick a few that you like, you start building it, you build it, you get excited, and then, well, we take a step back. So we let the ideas marinate. We let the thoughts percolate. We go through the list once again. We pick a couple of the ideas out to get ready for the recording session. We sit down with a piece of paper and a pen, and we go and we start writing. And it gets exciting. It gets interesting. It builds, and then we stop. Because the Nothin Good monologue really comes together the morning of. So you get in front of the guys, you get your monologue out, you feel the energy in the room, you start reading it, and you start getting excited, and the jokes start landing. Jeff and Herb, they start laughing. It builds, and then it's edging. This week on Nothin Good.
Quite introspective this morning.
I'm glad those were your thoughts are today.
Yes.
It is.
Welcome to the mind of Dave O'Mac, everyone.
Thank you.
For those of you who don't know what edging means, you should just go ahead and Google that.
Yeah, not on your work computer.
Google image search that.
Well,
Please do. Don't blame me for what you see, though.
listen,
I take no responsibility.
now for the record, I did also, because I knew where this was going to go, and I knew somebody was going to mention, go ahead and Google edging. If you do it on your work computer, you're probably going to be okay, because the first 12 results that come up for that is all just yard work.
Oh.
Yeah.
I guess that makes sense.
Unless you go ahead and decide to add a little urban dictionary to it, or sexual innuendo, does the actual definition of what I'm talking about really come into the fold?
What we appreciate is not only your wit and humor, but that you did the research to back it up.
Oh, I did. So, yeah, actually, go ahead and look up edging on your work computer. Now, I'm not responsible for what happens afterwards.
Nope.
But just go ahead and just casually mention to them, oh, I'm looking to do some yard work.
I'm going to edge my yard.
You're going to... Sidewalks looking...
I'm gonna edge that yard
I'm
so
looking
hard.
for my wife to edge my yard.
You know, also, when you edge your yard, the sidewalk looks bigger.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It's also important to trim the bushes.
It's also important to trim the bushes. Yeah. You know exactly where I was going with that one. Well done. Yeah.
Spent too much time with each other.
Oh, we have.
Very clearly.
Oh, very clearly.
So, it's been a while. I do not apologize for that.
We do what we want.
We work on our own schedule. You guys aren't fucking paying us for this shit. But we are back. We're going to try to get back to some consistency yet again. I don't know how many weeks it's been, but it's been several weeks. It's probably been over a month.
Yeah, about a month.
Yeah, it's been about a month.
It's been about a month. Feels like it's been 3 months.
Listen, shit gets busy.
I mean, I guess. Yeah, unfortunately.
Someone goes away. Someone has an anniversary. Someone just has severe hemorrhoids.
Oh, yes, there are hemorrhoids.
I didn't say me.
Well, who went away?
It's not me.
I mean, a lot.
I had an anniversary, so I'm just going to pull myself out of that list now.
I didn't go away, but I also don't have hemorrhoids.
Dave, did you go away and also have hemorrhoids?
He got hemorrhoids while he was away.
Oh, shit, that makes way more sense.
There's some altitude stuff that happens that you just got to be... It
just pops right out?
It just kind of, the further up in the mountains you get, it just, yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead and Google that.
Don't Google that. Google hemorrhoids.
Do not Google.
You won't enjoy what you see.
Well, I mean...
And if you do, that's between you and God.
If you Google hemorrhoids, don't pull up the images.
Again, unless you're into that sort of thing.
And if you are, what do you listen to us for?
Because they're into that sort of thing.
Jesus Christ.
There's nothing good about that.
A couple of years ago when we were first going around the podcast, I would try to say things like China and Russia and things like that, just to see if they were listening and to see if we could get some hits from those regions. I'm kind of now enjoying saying things like edging and hemorrhoids just to see what kind of new hits we might get on this episode.
Yeah, you got to follow the trends.
Yeah, you do. You
Smart.
do.
That's just good marketing.
It is good marketing. Exactly.
Speaking of good marketing, what you guys drinking today?
Whew. Jeffrey, I'll let you go ahead with that one.
All right, I am drinking a beer called Soft Style from the Veil. You know, it's a double
From the
hazy.
Veil?
The Veil, yes.
Like the Veil?
The Veil, yes. It's the name of the brewery. They're in
Is there a
Richmond, Virginia.
moon door?
Maybe.
Because, I mean, I swear to God, we got to go there.
There could be.
When you walked into the room, was a prince suckling on his mother's teat?
And was he 14 years old?
No. There was a bear, though.
Oh, okay.
Wow. All right. Of all the things on that show that to me was really fucked up, like I even got past the twincest pretty easily, but seeing a 14-year-old kid drinking his mother's titty milk was a fucked up thing.
You know, and that's the fucked
a whole
up part, is because as fucked up as that show was in certain points, it ain't got shit on the books at all. Like, nothing on the books.
Oh, man.
But the amount of fucking rape and awful fucking things and awful inner thoughts the characters have, like, let me fucking tell you something. I don't know why people like the books. Like, listen, I watched the show first like a lot of people did.
Yeah.
I mean, these books have been around for fucking ever.
They have been.
Late
like,
90s, or I believe,
I want to say early to mid-90s, yeah.
And I on occasion go down the rabbit hole because I still love that franchise. I still enjoy it, and I still plan on going back and watching the show from the start again at some point. And I go through these, like, compared to the show, and, like, the shit that Cersei thinks.
Oh, man.
I swear to Christ. And it's dark. You think the shit she did on the show was dark? I'm not even going to say... I don't want to say these things on the air. I might run for office one day.
Well, you know, that never stopped Noah.
Well, you know, and he didn't end up in office.
Yet.
That's true.
There's still time.
There's still time. That's a hell of a thing, because when you say it like that, I have the books, I've yet to read them.
Is that a surprise to anybody?
I feel like... Listen,
I don't own
please.
books unless I fucking read
Do
them.
tell. Yes.
no, I feel like I have to be in a fucking mindset
To read?
to read those books. I mean, they are...
and you haven't been there in 30 years or however long they've been out.
Christ alive.
No.
So wait, I will say this. I have the first book, Game of Thrones, and I started it a couple years ago because I was like, oh, the show was over, and I'm like, let me fucking dig into the book up because I know it's very different. Like a lot of, you know, and I probably got a quarter of the way through, and it's just one of those things. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, I'm tired after work, and I'm like, I don't have that mental energy to sit in bed and just like sit and read, you know. Unless it's something that, like, I've never read before. Like, right. I like to, you know, some nice science fiction. I'll read that, and like, but I don't know the story, so I'm more engaged.
Right.
So anyhow, what I've begun doing is collecting the graphic novelization of the books.
Okay.
They're fucking fire.
I have the first 3.
Did you read it?
I have thumbed through them.
Christ
In the store,
David.
but he was like, you know what? I'm gonna add this
I
to
have
my
that
collection.
too, but I have not touched it.
I know that I'm getting somewhere with Jones when he uses my full name.
Like what?
Jeez, man alive, David.
God damn it!
Well, they're really
Dave.
good, and they're accurate to the actual book.
That was a very family thing you did there.
Because man, like
That's
it's
the
so good.
That's the second time in
How
like...
dare you be sitting down collecting dust on them?
I mean, I cleared the dust off.
Well, at least you did that.
And speaking of internal thoughts and our opening monologue,
Yeah.
the Night's Watch and edging.
Oh, am I supposed to respond to that?
Sure.
He's giving you heavy eye contact.
Heavy eye contact.
He's looking for
what?
some sort of response.
I'm just saying. I mean, their internal monologue. I mean, did Jon Snow?
Oh, that's
know,
what you mean.
Yeah. Did Jon Snow know nothing? I mean, definitely Sam.
I'm sure.
Sam was definitely edging.
If I had to pick a Night's Watchman who was definitely edging,
Yeah.
the fuck was his name? The Targaryen, the blind one, old man. He was definitely edging.
Jesus Christ, you went there.
Oh, he definitely was. He's a fucking Targaryen. They're fucked up. Marrying your fucking sister's normalized.
I mean, you saw what happens. You saw what happened to Dany when she fucked and wasn't with her siblings. That chick came out a fucking dragon.
Yeah, true story.
Yeah. So.
Oh yeah. So Jeff, I'm sorry. What were you drinking?
It's not important.
Well, it is. It is to me. Sorry, I went down the edging rabbit hole.
The Veil.
The Veil.
The Veil.
Yeah, from the Veil. It's good.
Okay, good.
All right.
Yeah.
I am currently drinking a Three Floyds Black Sun Stout. Quotation, it's not normal.
It's staring at me.
It's
The
not
quotation.
normal.
Yeah.
It's not normal.
Yeah.
It's good, 6.5. Nice way to start my morning. Heavy hitters in the bag.
There you go.
There it is.
Yeah. Yeah, gotta save that for special occasion.
Yes. So what do you...
I am drinking some Dewey beer pale ale.
a what?
It's a Dewey beer.
Dewy beer.
Dewey pale
Is it
ale.
sticky?
It's a little dewy. You know?
That sounds nasty.
It's. I mean, not like
Dewey is the name of the brewery, not the
Yeah.
name of the beer.
Yeah.
This beer is real dewy,
It's
man.
so
It is.
dewy. It's
It
just
is.
called pale ale.
I feel like I just recently watched Scream again. So when I think Dewey's pale ale,
You go straight there.
I'm just going right to David Arquette's, cock.
So people obviously aren't watching this. I can see. I'm going to skip right over what you just said. And the can, if I may, just for a
Okay, absolutely. Go right ahead.
I can't help, and I'm curious if either of you motherfuckers even see this the way I see it. All I see, especially the little line here,
Yeah.
is Burger King. That's all I see is Burger King.
I saw more of like the A-Team's van.
Yeah, I was thinking more like 70s Winnebago.
Yeah.
If I look at I see is all here's BK, have it your way.
You rule.
roll.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fucking with me.
Yeah.
Don't look at it.
It's like I don't like it.
Don't make eye contact
Don't
with
look
the
direct-
can.
Don't look
Subpar
directly at it.
cheeseburgers and shit.
Oh man, but you know what? The zesty sauce is fire.
Man, Burger King used to be fucking fantastic. It is not anymore.
No.
And I don't know what changed in their recipe. I don't know if it's I've become older, my tastes have changed. I refuse to believe that's what it is. It's them, not me.
I have a
It's gotta be.
I have a thing in common with somebody who lives in this household where we're recording, where both of us end up with like gastric distress after eating Burger King.
Distress, no less.
Distress. Yeah.
Sounds very distressful.
It was not stressful. But, every once in a while I will stop by and get the onion rings because, I like the zesty sauce.
There we go, man. There we go.
But honestly though, I will not get anything else.
I used to love Burger King. Anyhow,
Yeah.
listen. So we got our beers out of the way. The dust has been knocked off the chain here of the machinery that is Nothin Good. Yet again, Noah is not here. You will be missed. We're here to talk about one thing, and one thing only today. WrestleMania 10. As of today, we have passed WrestleMania 40, 30-year anniversary, which is crazy to think that there's been 40 WrestleManias. WrestleMania 10 took place in Madison Square Garden.
Respect.
March 20th,
Respect.
1994.
Yeah. Up until this point, at least this is in my opinion. All this shit's in my opinion, obviously. Up until this point, the most important WrestleMania of all time was WrestleMania 1. Obviously 3. They're all important. For various moments and matches, but WrestleMania 1 was the most important one because it was the first one. And now with this being the 10th anniversary is incredible if you think about it. What the McMahon family and the WWF had been able to accomplish in 10 years to go from, a closed circuit to even though houses were down, ticket sales were down, profits were down.
Yeah, it was this particular year and era of wrestling was
Down
a
for everybody.
downturn.
Yeah, WCW, same. Everybody was fucked. They're struggling at this point. ECW was a thing, but not a thing totally yet. I think there was still Eastern Championship Wrestling in '94. I think this actually might be the year they become ECW proper. I think, but I could be totally wrong. But this again, everything across the board. With the steroid trial a couple years earlier. With Hulk Hogan just kind of doing whatever the fuck he wants. He's fucking about. He's not WCW yet, right? So he's off filming. Was it Thunder in Paradise? Is that show?
Oh God.
Yeah, Thunder in Paradise.
I'm pretty sure I blocked that out of my conscious memory.
Memory unlocked.
Yeah.
But if you take a step back and think about where wrestling was at the time, no one was doing great. McMahon's not a billionaire yet. They're just scraping by. They're just fighting, punching up to try to get to the next level, even though they didn't know what that level was, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, there's, this is a transitional period in wrestling. You have a card full of big names and big stars, and you have a card full of maybe not so big names and big stars, you know? I thought this card in particular was very feast or famine in terms of like some of the matches we got.
Yeah, when you look at it on paper,
yeah.
It's like big match filler, big match filler.
And you know, we've covered some wrestling shows on this podcast where, man, you fucking look at the card and every single person on that card's a Hall of Famer, right? Every single one. At a lot of them at you know, introductory stages or you know, middle stages of their career. Not this WrestleMania 10, but most WrestleManias also don't have a fucking sitting president sitting in the crowd in his own box enjoying the show.
Ridiculous.
That fucked with me.
So ridiculous.
It really fucked with me because that was a very good, I thought, impersonator of Bill Clinton. That I actually...
They were running that bit for a while.
They were, but I also had to question a little bit when I went there. I was like, what did Bill Clinton look like really at that time? Because that definitely felt close enough that I was questioning.
That if you just see it in passing, you're like, oh, Clinton was there.
Well, because, you know, like...
and you're like, why is he sitting next to IRS?
Well, I mean, I think that makes complete sense if you actually think about it. But, you know, I said to Jones when we were walking in this morning that I've seen matches of WrestleMania 10 independently, right? I've not seen... It's like when you read chapters of a book, which apparently I don't.
Listen, I said it, you didn't. You said it and I didn't.
But the... you know, when you see chapters just independently, it's different when you see the whole story put together. And I actually thought, in terms of how this card really played out, was pretty good. But there's a lot of stuff here that I didn't remember. So it was kind of cool, you know, sitting down and really, you know, sinking my teeth into it and kind of just taking it all in.
Yeah. And I think if you talk about what most people remember from this show, there's two matches in particular that we're going to talk about in great detail that people remember most. But there was a lot of storylines going on that they were trying to either button up or kick off in some cases. But, you know, Jones was talking about sort of the state of wrestling and, you know, it was down, although attendance was great. They had 18,000 people in the building. They were back to the scene of the crime. Madison Square Garden is where WrestleMania 1 was.
They did that for, I think, 20. They didn't do it for 30. At that point, they were stadium status by 30.
Yeah. What I thought was cool about this particular show is they were doing a lot of like retrospective shit about the previous Manias. This was the first WrestleMania with no Hulk Hogan, which is kind of a big deal.
That's wild.
We're coming off of a Royal Rumble that had two winners.
Yeah.
We have a ladder match where we have two people claiming to be Intercontinental Champion.
A lot of twos going on here.
And so it was just very interesting, the dynamic. And this is pre-Monday Night Wars, pre-Attitude Era. So it was really sort of this weird in-between phases of the evolution of professional wrestling. This was Randy Savage's last televised match with the WWF before he jumped ship.
Such a shame.
So there's a lot of stuff going on in the background and even in the forefront that made for an okay show. Some highlights, definitely some lowlights. And it seemed like it was all over the place in some cases, but we get Vince and Lawler on commentary. Sometimes you forget that Vince was just a commentator at one point. Granted, he's pulling a lot of strings, and he still was in the power seat, but to think like the CEO is the one calling a match.
Yeah, your boss.
It's pretty wild.
Your boss is 10 feet away from you watching you do your job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then it's also like now knowing all the shit that he did, which was probably going on at this point in time, you're like, I gotta listen to this fucking asshole for 3 hours.
It's interesting. With Vince being the head of the company, because at the end of the day, the wrestlers, the talent, their only job was to please the audience of one. It was Vince. Ultimately, regardless if he was right or wrong about a storyline or a character or a gimmick.
God, in context of everything that he's done, that sounded even filthier than you probably meant it.
But you think it's super smart for him to be in commentary because it was like not a rotating door, but typically it was Vince, Pat Patterson, Bruce Pritchard, maybe Jim Cornette, maybe Vince Russo. But it's typically the three, Vince, Pat, and Bruce, were head of creative before they had a team of writers. Which is why, some of the storylines are so iconic, because these guys came up in the business, they understood it. Pat Patterson is known as the greatest Finnish guy. The greatest Finnish guy of all time.
He was never edging.
Pat Patterson? I guarantee he was.
Ooh. Was he doing it during this WrestleMania?
That's probably why I didn't see him.
Yeah.
He's probably right behind the curtain, just peeking out.
But if you think about it, it's smart for Vince to be the guy who's helping to create and cultivate these storylines, to be on the mic to push the story the proper way. It's genius idea. I mean, and listen, that's not a new thing. Lots, during the territory days, the guy in charge would oftentimes, not every time, but oftentimes be on the microphone pushing the story along, because they know exactly where it needs to go. But yeah, it's weird now knowing what Vince was doing. And there are a lot of people who talk about Vince McMahon who've known him for 40 years who are like, the dude that we're hearing about now is not the dude that I knew back then, who spent hours daily with him, all day with him, because Vince is a workaholic and he sleeps like 4 hours a day, 3 hours a day. He's notorious for sleeping just a few hours a day, and he just work all the time. Like, whoever Vince is now, they say he wasn't that guy then. I don't know how much I believe that, but
you don't just become that.
Yeah, we had a conversation about that. I don't know if it was even on the air, but like when you're 70 years old, you don't just start doing that.
Is it head trauma, right? The man has had a lot of head trauma over the years once he started working.
Because of the bedpan.
I always blame the bedpan. No. I just find it interesting. Like, was he always this way? Or as he got older and richer and less people said no,
power,
did that come out of him?
Straight to your head.
That has a lot. I think now that has a lot to say about that. Yeah.
But so WrestleMania. Behind the curtain for me, and I've talked about this, so I won't go into great detail. But like, I've watched this WrestleMania dozens of times. Dozens.
Well, you owned it, right?
I own 1 through 13 on VHS.
Was it on Coliseum Video?
Probably. No, I think it was. I don't know if it was Coliseum at that point.
Because they were fucking hammering the shit out of that during the
I bought it
pay-per-view.
in '98, the box set in '98, because it had 13 on it, and I feel like it was WWF Home Video by that point.
Okay.
But and I have a couple bones to pick with the Peacock, because I know what the real show is supposed to sound like with the cock. But I've watched
Bones to pick with the cock.
Yeah, you heard me.
All right.
I would actively, after school, back when I was convinced that
make sure you put that in there.
Yeah, I would actively, because I thought I was going to be like a wrestling commentator when I became an adult, so I would actively just watch a WrestleMania every day. I'd pick one and just go in order, and every day after school, do my homework, chores, go outside maybe, and spend 2.5 hours watching WrestleMania over and over again.
Would you mute your TV or turn the volume all the way down?
And would you do
your own commentary?
On occasion.
I've had in my life aspirations of doing that for sports. And there will be times I would watching a game, I'd turn the volume down and do my own commentary, or at least my own play-by-play. And I will say I was not good at it.
Well,
and I tried.
It's still important to have dreams.
But like, it's going back and watching this.
I still do it. Like, I'll still do the intro to like it's a hockey night in Pittsburgh tonight from PPG Paints Arena. I'll still do it. But I get to a point like 3 minutes in where it just falls apart dramatically. It just falls apart. So
I know what you mean.
And then I just turn the volume up and just go.
Let the pros do this.
Yeah. All right, I've had enough.
But like,
it's been enough fun
to watch this. This is the first old WrestleMania that we've covered, and so hadn't watched this in a long time. So sitting down and beginning and end, I remember every line, I remember every move, every spot. Everything. And I'm like, it's weird how your brain doesn't let go of that stuff.
Yeah.
It's just back there until you unlock it again.
You know what I forgot about, though? At the intro of the show, all the 90s haircuts I got to see. Whew. And there were plenty of them in New York City.
They were in full force.
In the spring of 94. They're fucking holy shit. Like boxes and just all sorts of shit.
Yeah.
Mullets and such. We got Little Richard out doing his thing. I respect it.
Lip syncing.
I respect it.
Hey, I really enjoy the seriousness America the Beautiful takes with WrestleMania. I do. It's a time-honored tradition. It's not the national anthem. They've kind of made it their own thing, but they've never really mailed it in. They never phoned it in, right? So I'm watching it, and then Little Richard kind of does the thing, and then it builds. Then he's really singing at that point. Whether it's a fucking track or not, I don't give a shit. But the choir kind of around the ring and everything, and I'm like, you know what? I still get a kick out of that. Look forward to it every WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I do.
Then they start the show with 2 Canadians.
They do, don't they? Oh, Canada. And 2 good Canadians, because later on we get 2 bad Canadians.
Oh, you mean the Rougeaus? Or the Quebecers?
The
rather?
Quebecers.
They're not bad.
I mean, they kind of look like
Jacques and Pierre.
Mounties, but I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't know they existed, never heard of them before that pay-per-view, and haven't seen anything about them afterwards, so.
Well, shit, okay.
Yeah.
Well, they were tag champions.
What do you think Canadians do when they edge? Is it in the metric system?
What are they measuring?
Meters?
They're metering themselves?
Centimeters? Liters? Milliliters?
They'd love to have leaders, I'm sure.
I'm sure they do.
How do you measure edging?
I don't know.
Non-metric.
I mean
You'd have to know what to compare it to.
anyway.
You opened this box.
Yeah, you posed the question.
I did.
Inquiring minds want to know.
I think there are 3 factors that you would use to measure. Number 1, duration.
Okay.
And to that, it could be length of time or cycles of edging. How many times do you get the build up and then the come down? Thank you. Second would be, volume. Once you do hit that point of completion, the 1, 2, 3, if you will, what volume are we looking at here? And then number 3, in the interim, you're looking at your length. We're looking at how many centimeters we're getting into the process. Does it change during the cycle? I don't know. So, and if you have a piece of string, you can kind of measure the girth of it too.
This is really interesting.
A piece of string.
Yeah,
That is so specific, Dave.
I mean, not like
I wonder why.
I've not put a lot of thought into this, nor have I experienced this.
A piece of string.
Well, because you're not. I mean,
you
you're
just
not
take measuring tape.
like a tape measure.
That they use to measure
yeah,
shoulder
it's
width.
thin,
No, I mean, do you have one of those around? What's more likely for you to have, one of those or string? I have both. What's more likely though?
I mean, measuring tape if you're an adult.
Oh, all right. Well, I don't know a lot of adults that have measuring tape.
That's weird.
I
question them.
No, we're going to go ahead and put a poll on the socials and ask how many of the listeners of our show have measuring tape at home.
I would listen. If you're over the age of 24 and you somehow magically don't have measuring tape, the fuck are you fixing things in your home?
No, but I mean, measuring tape, if you have the tape measurer, I mean, it's a kind of a rigid thing. I'm not wrapping that around my cock. Now, if it's one of those things when you go to the tailor and they're checking your
I have both
inseam
of those.
I mean, I do have that also, obviously. Obviously. So, but I don't know a lot of people that would necessarily have that, because why would you need that if
to
you don't
measure your shoulders or
you go to a place to do that?
The fuck, first world, you could just do it your fucking self. I'd go to somebody to do that for me.
Yeah, but I don't know a lot of people that would just feel like they need to measure themselves.
Maybe you don't know a lot of people.
Well, or maybe I don't know the right people.
That is a better way.
There we go.
I apologize.
There it is. Yeah.
Now we're getting down to it.
The brass tacks.
This is fun because usually Dave takes us down these weird paths when he hasn't watched or played or done what's relevant to what we're talking about.
Just derails us consistently.
But today he actually watched the pay-per-view. And he's still taking us down this fucking path.
I would keep going back to edging.
Listen,
are you edging right now? Is that
I only see one hand, and I'm not okay with any of this.
There's only one hand above the table, dear sweet Peruvian listeners. That's all you need to know. And maybe, maybe.
Hey,
you have an impressive poker face.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
This is why we don't do video.
If it looks like,
if
at some point in time during the episode, it looks like I'm sucking on a lemon, just don't make eye contact.
If I hear you scream, "Chee!"
Oh
man.
Yep. So at some point we'll get to the first match of this fucking show, which happens to be, and for many people, one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. For me, for my money, it's in the top 10 for sure. It's a fantastic match.
It's still
It's
pretty.
the best opening match of a WrestleMania.
Potentially, yes. That
Right.
actually is very, very on the money.
Yeah. In terms of WrestleMania 10s, this was the best opening match I've ever seen.
Good thing there's only one.
Of all the WrestleMania 10s I've seen, this one was my favorite.
Yeah, favorite opening match. I'll say that. We got the Battle of the Brothers, man.
Yeah, the best brother versus brother match in wrestling history, probably.
Yeah.
And I've not seen all of them, but I'm pretty confident that's the best one.
Yeah. It definitely beats the one we got recently.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
So the storyline kind of started at the Survivor Series '93 the previous year, which is really cool that it started back in, because God damn it, back in those days, and they're doing it more now. But back in those days, there's less TV, there was no Raw, so you had like superstars and shit like that to push storylines along. So you could justifiably build a feud for like 8
Long-term
months.
storytelling.
And it was
Yeah.
beautiful because you just literally had a show to follow everything up. Brett and Owen were in a Survivor Series match together. There's some chicanery. Brett accidentally gets Owen eliminated to no fault of his own directly. Owen's fucking jacked. And he wants to fucking fight his brother because that's what little brothers want to do. He wants to fight his older brother.
And because he was the only Hart to get eliminated.
He
in
was
that
the
match.
only. I mean, God, couldn't they eliminate like Bruce or Keith? God damn it! Fucking eliminate Owen, motherfuckers. And of course, Owen or Brett, being the mature older brother, he's not gonna fight his little brother. Why would he want to do that? And Owen just like, motherfucker, I want to fight you, man. Like, I'm pissed.
Yeah.
It's so cool because, God, this whole feud served a singular purpose. It's Owen's coming out party. It's his stepping into the spotlight party. It's his option, and I'm going to get to like the end of this. Why it's to me it's even more important end of the show. But so Brett's like, no, I'm not going to fight you. Then they do the reconciliation. They have a tag team title match at the Rumble, where Brett does double duty again. And I think during the match, his knee gets injured, and they stop the match. There was against the Quebecers for the tag team titles, much to Dave's chagrin.
Hey,
And
See what you did there.
thank you.
as I think what Owen's famous for saying, kicking your leg from under your leg, is like his fucking line that makes no fucking sense.
In Canada, they call it slew footing, but I didn't think that'd really go in America.
Is that a real thing?
Actually, it is, yes.
What does that mean?
It's a hockey term. So,
This is why I don't like hockey.
so slew foot's actually very dangerous.
It sounds dangerous.
What you do when you're on the ice, you would put your leg behind another player's leg. And then what you would do is you would take your arm and you'd push them from in front, so it carries their weight back over your leg behind them, and they go ass over tea kettle down to the ice. But the thing is, with slew foot, is typically you're landing head first. So it's actually a very dangerous thing to do.
It's frowned upon.
It's extraordinarily frowned upon. You're gonna get
no bueno.
You're gonna get your ass beat if you legitimately do a slew
Do
foot.
people do that actively?
Yes.
Even though they know it's a horrible, non-sportsman-like thing to do?
Yeah.
Canadians are really fucking weird, Jones. They are the nicest people. They will apologize for everything, including Nickelback. But when you put them on skates and you put a stick in their hands and you put walls around them, they turn into fucking animals.
Caged animals.
Jesus Christ. It makes no sense. Getting yelled at in Canadian when I was 14 years old for the first time, I played in a hockey tournament where Canadian teams were there, I learned a whole thing of trash talking I didn't even know existed. And it was like equal parts nice and like also insulting.
Is this also where your edging trauma started?
No.
Are you
It's
connecting the dots here?
no, and we'd have to go back to Victoria's Secret catalogs and probably a year or two earlier for that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Noted.
Yeah. One bathroom house with 5 people living in there, you're edging a lot. Anyway, apologies to any of my family members that listen to this. And if you're listening to this, what the fuck are you doing?
Learning about your edging habits.
Yeah. They thought they were going to tune in to listen about wrestling.
Nobody in my family, nobody in my immediate family, like my brother and my sister, even though my sister has claimed if she would get on our podcast, our numbers would just explode.
I wait for Chrissy. I'm waiting.
We're waiting.
Someday.
Yeah.
I call bullshit.
One day. But, there's no way Barb is listening to this.
Please don't listen, Barb. Please, Mrs. McDonald.
Just turn it off right now.
There was one time I did try to get her to listen to like an intro, and she just looked at me with like a puzzled look on her face, like I raised you better than this.
That actually hurts my feelings a little bit.
No, more along the lines of the fucked up things that I typically say in the introduction. I'm like, it's okay, Mom, it's just an act. And like you could tell to her, like she felt deep down there was some wound that I'm still nursing.
It's like, what did I do wrong? Where did I hurt you?
You were the child that was supposed to turn out okay.
Yeah.
Oh,
Point to where mommy hurt you.
Oh.
Yeah.
So back on track. From the edging. Brett and Owen, they have their falling out again at the Rumble because Owen attacks Brett's injured knee. Becomes the whole thing, and now the Rocket is really coming out. Now that voice, that heel voice, that energy he has.
What color was the Rocket when it was coming out, Jones?
Pink.
Yeah, it was.
I mean, his tights are actually pink.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about my Rocket, no.
I wasn't talking about yours.
I hope not.
I was talking about
That's
his.
fucking weird.
Yeah, that is.
All right, let's
not
cross that line.
I love this episode already. I'm having so much fun.
Good.
That's great. Everything's great.
Everything's just amazing.
It's fine.
So Brett and Owen goes 20 minutes and 21 seconds, which is the longest match on the card. And it needed that room to breathe.
Yeah. Fantastic storytelling. Great pace to start the match. Great pace throughout the match. I thought the spots were so fucking solid. And, I kind of mentioned this to you guys earlier. When I was watching this match, I was thinking to myself, how many times have they done this? In terms of whether they've wrestled each other, which sure they wrestled each other thousands of times in the dungeon. But even like worked out in their minds, like one day if we get the chance to do this match in front of a house full of people, like how are we going to do it? And it just felt crisp the whole way through.
Yeah, and it was expert level storytelling. I mean, Brett was still the big brother who reluctantly didn't want to put his hands on Owen, and Owen just kept getting madder and madder. We get the slap, we get the low blow, we get Brett gets put in the sharpshooter and taps out but doesn't tap out. But it was the pacing of everything was just so good.
Even the beginning of the match, right? Just if you just go back to before the bell rings, Brett's in the ring, Owen's in the ring, referee's there, and Owen's pacing. He's just like, motherfucker, I'm gonna fuck you up. He's looking for any little weakness because he's not looking to wrestle his brother. He wants to beat him up. He wants to teach him. He wants validation that he deserves to be in the spotlight.
Yeah, he wants retribution for however many years of being in Big Brother's shadow.
And as fired up as Owen is, and as much as he's got that eye of the tiger look, he's hungry, Brett's just stoic. Like, it's like he's playing that, like, I don't really want to be here doing this. I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
We're going to have this fight, but I don't want to have to do this.
Well, there's always that point, too, with Big Brother, Little Brother, when it goes from, I'm your big brother, I'm going to do this because you clearly needed to, you done fucked up. And now the wrath is coming. I'd always joke with people that if my brother and I had ever both made it to the NHL, I absolutely would have fought him. Because you don't really see that. Brothers don't typically fight each other in hockey. But like I definitely would have fought my brother because we had a relationship growing up where we would battle each other. And I always tell people that the greatest day of my life was the day that I fucked with my brother and he chased me down and could not catch me. The day that I was running up the hill on Parkside and I turned around and I saw my brother with his hands on his knees trying to catch his breath and I was still running up the hill and I was like, oh shit.
The tide has turned.
The tide has turned.
Yeah, right? The high ground.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, you have to have the high ground. That shit wasn't by accident. But you had brothers too, Jeff. I mean, did you kind of have that kind of relationship with them at points in time?
And we watched wrestling, so we would playfully beat the shit out of each other.
Playfully
quite
put the figure four on and really hurt the other one. Because you're not putting it on the right way.
That has happened, yes.
First time I was ever put in a figure four. B. Hannah.
B. Hannah.
Did it in my front yard.
He would like this show. I feel like B. Hannah would like this show.
I feel like he would too.
He would listen because he likes us. And then stay for the content.
Well, B. Hannah too. I mean, he and I were Attitude Era buddies. Like we watched everything together with a group of our friends. And I think even as some of the other guys kind of started to fade out of it, me and Brendan still were still watching and talking about it in school and stuff like that. So yeah, B. Hannah, if you're ever listening to this, man, fucking shout out to all the good memories, man, watching wrestling together.
Yeah, the difference between like a worked figure four and a shoot figure four is like inches. And that shit fucking hurts if you put it on the right way.
Yeah.
It is horribly painful. I mean, you can do it to your younger siblings if you want, but if you fucking break something.
Yeah, it did not feel good. And kudos to him for doing it, like, right.
or
wrong.
And you learned that day.
I mean, listen, I got bad knees. I don't know if it has anything to do with it.
Fucking hell.
But my knees were okay before that happened.
It's all his fault. But yes. So back to the match. I think the match... Okay, so... Oh, wait. Now, all right. So I brought this up before we start recording. We talked about it a little bit. And we're 30 years away from WrestleMania 10. We had a brother versus brother match that just passed WrestleMania 40. Jimmy and Jay Uso. Now, we're coming off of the hottest program in wrestling today, The Bloodline, right? Which is still going, which has been fantastic. It's been chef's fucking kiss for years now. Kudos to them for doing such a good fucking job. But you have the opportunity to have Jimmy and Jay have a one-on-one match and not just be like, oh, it's a one-on-one match, randomly on Raw because whatever reason. It's a one-on-one match. It's a blood feud. Bret and Owen was a blood feud. Literally a blood feud. And you had an opportunity. And yes, it's never going to be Bret and Owen. Nothing can be Bret and Owen because they were in a class all their own. And Jimmy and Jay aren't on that level. They're fine wrestlers. They can work fine, but they're not on that level. But it's less to me about the... I mean, yeah, the match wasn't great. I mean, they supposedly had not enough time. They are given, and I know you shake your head on this.
I do, man.
But it's not like I was there, but it's not as simple as, well, yeah, we might have, let's say 6 minutes, 7 minutes. But we want to do this story. But if that's not what's being said, if the agent's like, well, we want to do this instead, well, that's what the fuck you're doing. I think that there is we sometimes forget that it is really a team effort backstage. And these wrestlers have limits, right? So what I mean is, this is going back. So if you read Bret Hart's book, for example, his biography, his autobiography is phenomenal. He talks a lot. Bret went to school. He wanted to be a filmmaker. That's what he wanted to do. So he thinks in a cinematic way.
No shit. That makes a lot of sense.
So when he would structure his matches in his head, he viewed it as a movie, like it was like a thing happening. And so he'd write in his book, like, his match with Bulldog or Owen or Shawn or this person, like, flashbulbs going off and I do this and they do this. He saw wrestling in a cinematic way, and that's how his brain worked, right? So, and it translates.
Yeah, it really does.
He understood the storytelling of it. I don't know how the Usos see wrestling. They might just be good soldiers in that they do
it's
what they're
part
told,
of the family thing.
and they have a match. The match it wasn't even a bad match, but it was bad relative to what it could have been.
So, let me ask you a question, because you kind of mentioned it, and we've talked about the timing being an issue between Jimmy and Jay. How long do you think you would need to tell an effective story in a match? Time-wise.
General?
Just time-wise.
It depends on the wrestlers.
Well, during the match.
Like, you mean their match?
Yeah. How much time do you think that they would need in their match? Because you said their match got cut short for time and they weren't able to do everything they wanted to do and whatnot. How long do you think you would need to be able to tell an effective match?
Brother versus brother,
yeah.
Coming off a Bloodline on a 2-night WrestleMania?
Right.
Easily 30 minutes.
Okay. So, they did not get nearly that amount of time. They got 11 minutes and 5 seconds to do that. Now, isn't the purpose of you doing a 2-night WrestleMania and having such a... And, of course, I felt that the card, as full as it was, still wasn't very full at 40, right?
No.
So, if the point of having, 2 nights is to extend the card and give people the time they need for their matches, why do you still cut that for time?
I think part of it is, and this is just my perspective or my opinion on it, is I don't think they gave the feud the right amount of screen time building up to it.
Now, I give you...
And I think
it felt very forced, because it's like, oh, Jimmy's interfering in Jay's matches now. But also, when you look at them together as the Usos, probably one of the greatest tag teams of all time.
Yeah, I think
and they have the hardware to back it up.
I think you can say that objectively. Yep.
When you separate the two, they put the spotlight on Jay and elevated him to main event Jey Uso status. And Jimmy's still just a background guy.
Yeah.
Yeet.
And so it doesn't... No yeet.
Yeet.
No yeet. It doesn't have... Like, Jimmy can't carry the same draw because he's always just...
He's henchman.
Him and Solo are just behind Roman the whole time. And they never gave him time to shine as a singles wrestler. And so it's almost like, at the end of the day, does it really fucking matter? Because everyone's yelling yeet anyways.
Yeah.
Now,
because of the way they elevated him, and they aligned him with Cody, and that's where the audience is. And Jimmy just never got his chance to shine. And I think because of that, they're like, oh, well, they main evented WrestleMania 39, night 1. Granted, they lost the titles, but still they were in the main event window. But over the time, they're like, yeah, we really want to build. I mean, WrestleMania 39, they're like, WrestleMania 40 should be Uso versus Uso. Twin brother versus twin brother. Like that's huge.
I think that's kind of where I'm going with this.
They did it because it was 40 and because of what was happening, the grand scheme of the storyline with the bloodline.
Yeah.
You almost had to have
Yeah,
that.
I just think there were so many flaws in the execution building up to it that you really didn't give a shit about the match. At least I didn't.
I was interested because it was like, okay, cool. Like, all right, let's see what they do. But, like, they're not the type of wrestlers who can just go in there. Like, can you I can tell you I don't know what my favorite Jimmy or Jey Uso match is ever because I don't have any. Because that's not that they're bad. No shade at all to them. They're fine workers. They make good money to do what they do for a living. But they're not... I can't tell you a match where they had, even if it was a tag team, that was like this fucking 5-star standout fucking match. They don't exist. They're just good at what they do. They're not excellent at what they do.
When your finisher is a super kick and a frog splash, and you do 30 super kicks in a match, like, does it really matter?
I felt every single time that they did a super kick, Shawn Michaels got like $5.
I hope so. Work on that eye he has.
Kick it back in the face.
Listen, I'll never forgive Sean for Montreal. Anyhow,
fucking beat me
You
to
know
it.
what you did.
you know the fuck you did. But in all seriousness, I think, like, how would you guys... Because I do believe that the biggest issue isn't necessarily the match. Because if the build-up was right, you could have still had a similar type of match, and it would have meant more.
And see, I think you have... And again, I know why you want the match. And I think I told you guys too. Since they kind of came on the scene and started to make a name for themselves as a tag team, I was waiting for the day they were going to wrestle each other. And, it's not just their brothers. They're fucking twins, man.
It's
they're
right in itself.
Twins.
Yes. The best part of the match was the promo video they played before the match.
Yeah.
You were my brother.
You were my... They could have just taken the whole fucking last 5 minutes of episode 3 and just redubbed it in wrestling terms, and everybody would have fucking been there for it.
So the question is, how, if you could, and I meant to message this question to you guys like days ago so you could think about it, and I'm a bad co-host, so I didn't. How would you, not the match, not the finish, that doesn't matter. How would you have built the match? That's the feud. Would you have changed anything? Because I'd have changed quite a bit, just to make it mean more.
And we're talking Owen versus Brett here, not Jimmy versus
No,
Jay.
We're
what the
talking Jimmy
fuck?
versus Jay.
Oh, we're talking Jimmy versus.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I
Sorry.
changed nothing here.
I was gonna say, because when you asked it earlier, I think I misunderstood how you were proposing it, and I'm like, they did a really fucking good job of building
I
that
wouldn't
up.
really
I don't know
change
that I
anything,
really want
yeah.
to change
No,
anything.
they did what they were supposed to do there.
I think that, Jeff, you bring a good point that you would want both of them to have elevated storylines where they were the focus, to put more attention on both of them, so that when they did ultimately come together, it was going to mean a lot more.
Yeah, the only time it really meant anything was when Jay was facing Roman and Jimmy interfered because he didn't want him to become Roman.
Yeah.
But then they just went their separate ways. And then randomly Jimmy just starts interfering in matches. And Jay just keeps getting mad about it.
Right.
But it's like,
Because and
where's the weight and the importance of the story as opposed to the why? Like, people give a shit about the why. Like,
The why is the most important part.
That's the core of the storytelling aspect of it. And without that, it's just, I'm fucking with my brother. That's it.
I think that they missed an opportunity here because like I think you guys said, they did kind of shoehorn this in. And recent WWE, pre Triple H taking over creative, like really taking over creative, we would have this. The last couple of WrestleManias, 37, 38, 39, you would see that in the last couple of months leading up to Mania, they would be in a rush to have storylines working for guys to wrestle each other. And we talked about this too, where you didn't feel any weight to it. You didn't really feel like this match was important as they wanted it to be. You had two good wrestlers that had good names that were going to put on a good match. But why do I care about it other than I'm going to see two good wrestlers try to put on a good match? I don't, right? Undertaker saw a lot of that his last couple of matches. A sprint to get somebody in there that means something, so you have a Taker match at Mania. You could have had something happen because, obviously we were all here for Cody and Roman and everything that was going on with that. As soon as Rock comes in, Jimmy and Jay don't matter.
Yeah. Roman almost didn't matter.
Right. So at that point, because the focus becomes on just, Rock, really, and Roman, you don't worry about Jimmy and Jay. You just allow something to happen in the match where Jimmy and Jay, which it did happen, where Jimmy and Jay come to blows. That should have been what it was to kick it off. Because if your premise is then to, sunset Roman for a little while, let Jimmy and Jay have that build up. So then you could go ahead and basically start where this works towards SummerSlam. If you're looking for something that gives you 4 or 5 months of focused storytelling without Roman's story having to interfere with it. I think that's probably something that I would do. And I do think it should have been a WrestleMania match. So then start it at WrestleMania 40 and then let it culminate through 41. Let them kind of go their separate ways a little bit and then gradually have things that bring them more and more against each other, or where their paths start crossing more, and let that naturally build up.
I dig that.
Yeah, I also think by separating them on shows, it didn't help anything. Because then it's like, as a person watching it, you don't really understand, like, well, why are you showing up on Raw when you're a SmackDown guy?
Because they drove together.
Well, yeah. But I think, the core of it, you were very correct, Jeff, is that, it's the why, right? So for me, being a big fan of the why in professional wrestling is, okay, you could have changed almost nothing, right? I don't want to overcomplicate the idea. Brother versus brother. Tale as old as time. Siblings are always going to have issues with each other here and there. It's just the way it works. So if Jimmy interferes in Jay's match out of nowhere, okay, well, why? I'll tell you why. Because he hates him, right? They are the same person, right? They are the actual same person.
Yes.
Ultimately. They share a womb together.
They did.
They have been together their entire existence.
They did.
Which is,
How'd you say it like
that is a depth of connection that you cannot have with another human being, no matter how hard you try.
Their
Period.
penises developed at the same time in the same womb.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a fucking connection.
Yeah, exactly.
I
So
think they docked in there.
They might have.
That's fucking weird, guys. Can we cut that? Anyhow.
No, leave it in.
Now I didn't say shit. So after he interferes, he comes out on
At
Raw.
least 3 people were thinking it.
I'm glad. He comes out on Raw and he's like, everybody's asking me. Sometimes the old way is the best way in wrestling. People are asking me why. I haven't seen my brother in months. Why did I decide to, interfere in this particular match? Well, it might have been a championship match. Was it a championship match you interfered in?
It was the IC title match.
There we go.
Yeah, with Gunther.
And I want my brother to come out so I can tell him to his face. Jay comes out. People yeeting all over the fucking place. It's fucking dewy.
So much heat.
Yeah. He gets in the ring and he's just like, "What's up, Boos? You don't call me. You don't text me. I call you. You don't leave. What do you got a problem with me for?"
I like that you used Oos in the proper context. I feel like Jimmy and Jay don't always use Oos in the proper context.
They use it a lot.
They do, but they use it to people that are not Oos.
Well, but
yeah. I mean, at least Sami Zayn was a little Oosy.
He was Oosy. So, and Jimmy's just like, "Man, we were ride or die, man. We were since birth. Everything together. School together. We fought together. Whatever." And then the bloodline becomes the most important thing. And then you left. You turned on our family. And then you come here to Raw and they make you the main event? Our tag team, that was the main event. That was our dream. And now you're out here pretending like I don't exist, pretending like our family doesn't exist, that Roman doesn't exist, that our dad doesn't exist, that our brother doesn't exist, our family, our dynasty. I hate you for what you've become. That's why I interfered. And every chance I get, I'm going to find you. I'm going to beat your ass. If I see you in the parking lot, I'm going to find you. I'm going to beat your ass. Because you ain't no oos to me anymore.
Here's my money, sir. I'm going to pay to see your feud.
Thank you. But that's the why.
I just took my wallet out and presented Jones with my debit card.
And then he presents it. And if you do this right, now button this up because we are going long on one match.
There's really only 2 or 3 matches we're talking about here.
So gloss over a lot.
Yeah.
So Jimmy presents it as if he hates his brother because of him becoming the main event. He hates the Office for giving him that opportunity. It's really because he's fucking jealous of him. And that's what comes out over time. It's the green-eyed monster. It's the one thing that he can't control. What they did with
Owen and Brett.
Exactly.
Bring it back.
Bring it back to what works, God damn it. It's not about the family. It's not about the dynasty. It's not about the bloodline. And that's what Jay can say. Like, I thought that's what it was. I felt so guilty. Because you could play it out where you can see like he feels bad about it. Like, maybe Jimmy's right. Like, maybe I turned my back on my family. I thought I was doing the right thing. Roman was too big for his britches. I was trying to do what I feel like my father would have me do. But maybe he's right. But then it becomes obvious it's the jealousy. Because he's main event. Jey Uso and Jimmy's just henchman number 3, which is exactly what he would say. And that's what pisses you off. That's what drives you. Because I got my own music. You got background music number 7. Motherfucker, an entire generation of kids will get that shit. We get it.
Yeah.
Right? That's your fucking feud.
Yeah.
You don't even have to have the match be any fucking different. I mean, I would love it to be different, but you get people engaged. Rarely do you have, and I actually wrote this about the match Brett and Owen, rarely do you have a feud that delivers both in the ring and in the fucking build-up. This match did. Thank God it did.
Yeah.
Right?
And it felt real.
Yeah, it did.
Like, the animosity between the two felt real.
And they're close as shit.
Whereas with Jimmy and
Yeah.
Jay, it felt forced.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, this match was fantastic. I miss Bret Hart matches. God damn it, I miss Bret Hart matches so much.
I miss Owen Hart matches.
Everything that they do has meaning.
I like that we have the WWE Network where I can go back and watch more of Owen Hart. I wish we would have had more time with Owen Hart. I really do. Mm-hmm. Such a great talent, great wrestler. It's a shame what happened. And just wish we would have had more of it. You know, you'd like to see where wrestling would be. I had two thoughts when I was watching this match. Going through. Number one, where would wrestling be if Brett never left WWE? And where would wrestling be if Owen hadn't died?
First of all, if Montreal never happened, I could almost guarantee you we would have never had Austin versus McMahon.
Right.
That would never have happened.
No.
I can't imagine a version how it would. I mean, Austin would still become a star because he was already a star by '97. He was getting there. So actually, chances are Shawn Michaels would never have had to retire because he would not have been in that feud with the Undertaker in that particular moment in time and having that fucking specific match for the casket and the fucking spot. Brett and Austin would have gone a little longer eventually to come back to each other, and it would have been the Brett and Austin feud that elevated Austin even further, chances are. Because the long gestating Hart versus Austin saga that I one day will fucking record, which I have the entire fucking outline written, by the fucking way. We just need to actually, it'll take several hours and several recording sessions to do this.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, the Attitude Era, which was already in existence by '97, would have just been different. It would have just been different. Vince McMahon would not have been the heel, and he's the greatest heel of that era. So I don't know who the fuck would have taken that place. I don't know. It would have been very different.
It would have been
very different.
That's what I'm saying. It's an interesting like what if kind of a thing. What if Brett never left? Because then again, Brett doesn't leave. Maybe Brett doesn't get hurt.
Exactly. There's a lot.
There's a lot.
Yeah, a
right?
lot of
We'd have had Brett
there.
for at least another 6 years.
Yeah.
Full time. Well, 5 years full time.
Yeah.
You know, which would have been fucking fantastic. He could have worked with Rock more. Would there have been a Rock the way? If Brett doesn't go, then potentially Shawn doesn't get injured. Then Brett and Shawn are still kind of like taking up those two spots.
The guys.
Does Triple H become the guy? Possibly not. Not the way he did. Like, there's a lot of things that will be drastically different potentially.
I feel like Triple H was the Thanos of professional wrestling. He was just inevitable.
Well, he did snap his fingers.
He did.
But yeah, I love just, you know, last thing I'll say about this match, just fucking I love it when they pick a body part, isolate it, and just work it.
Work the knee.
God damn it, that's all you need to do. And
Jeff,
then just make sure the guy sells it.
Jeff, can you do me a favor? Can you clip where Jones says, I love when you find a body part and isolate it and work it?
Oh.
And just send that to me so that could be my text message notification sound.
Okay.
I want that. Yeah.
Sure.
Thank you. Thank
Will
you.
do.
Appreciate that.
And
Giggity.
So yeah, all in all, this was a great match. It was also important because it was, you know, we were only 5 months ish into the feud between Owen and Brett, but it would continue on. Mm-hmm. You know, Owen now, he graduated
Big time.
into the big leagues, into main event status, if you will. He feels, why does Brett get a title shot when I beat Brett, right? He goes on to win King of the Ring, and it really continues to sort of elevate his status as not being the little brother anymore. Like, he's a legit contender.
Even in a microcosm in this pay-per-view, it comes full circle with this match because, you know, Owen wins, right? And then, of course, we get the ending, which we'll talk about here. But I loved that aspect of it, you know, just of the very end of the pay-per-view, which we'll talk about. But yeah, awesome.
And real quick shout out to the jizz on the left side of Owen's face. Bothered me then, it bothers me now. You know, just, it's always there.
Yeah, he wasn't edging. He finished.
I feel bad that I'm not the one who said that.
You were thinking it.
I actually, you know what? I think I was so distracted by it that I didn't even put a note down.
But you saw that shit.
Oh, of course you did.
It's just
Yeah.
there. And I'm sure when
Yeah.
he looked back on it, he went, God damn it.
It looks like he brushed his teeth, but only like wiped the one side of his
Yeah.
mouth when he was done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Big Brother could have been like,
No,
Clean
that's
yourself up.
no. That's exactly what Big Brother would have
Like,
done.
you got a little porn star up
There's
there.
a
You wanna
reason
wipe
I have
that
a
off.
complex, like when I eat anything in public and I have to constantly wipe my mouth because There was a time where I did have a little bit of barbecue sauce left over, and nobody fucking told me, and I left that shit for 3 periods in high school. Oh. Yeah.
Some friends you had.
Yeah. Fuckers. And then I remember like going to the bathroom and seeing it there. I'm like, fuck, nobody said a goddamn thing.
I had a guy I used to work with who was my boss back when I worked at the grocery store way back in the day. And one day he was eating like a Snickers. It might have been Snickers. And they had like the nougat caramel combination. Mm-hmm. And this was an old guy. And it won't be as funny to you because you don't know his face and how he's shaped. But like he's eating this, and I'm working beside him, and I just happened to look back over. He finished his candy bar, and there's like a string of nougat hanging off his chin, like a long one. And I looked, and I'm thinking to myself, I could tell him, but he made a 600-piece order today, so I ain't telling him shit.
That's some vengeance shit there,
and
Jones.
that shit
got him.
At some point, he noticed, but I didn't say shit, and that shit lasted for hours.
Did you feel anything like afterwards about it? Like you should have said something you didn't? Did you feel any guilt?
Regret? Hell no.
Fucking cold-hearted, Jones.
Hell no. 600-piece order is big as shit.
Cold-blooded.
No. But yeah, there's a certain level of betrayal. Because I know he felt a certain way about that afterwards. He had to, because I was right beside him. And I looked him in the eye
He knew that you knew it was there.
And spoke to him in eye to eye. So he probably went to the bathroom and went, what the fuck? Fucking Herb. God damn it.
Yeah.
But he
probably carried that for the rest of the time you guys worked together.
I hope so. He deserved it.
He probably felt bad about the 600-piece order, and then later on, no.
Makes it even better for
Motherfucker didn't say a goddamn thing about that nougat.
No, but you know what I'll say a lot about? The Hair Club for Men.
Finkel loves it.
But listen, Fink looked pretty good.
He did.
He looked all right,
He
man.
did.
I bet his wife didn't mind. I forgot all about the Hair Club for Men. I forgot that even existed. And the only time in my life that I've ever heard of the guy Cy Sperling, that is the most fucking male porn star name I've ever fucking heard in my life.
It sounds like a supervillain.
Cy
From some shitty 80s movie.
Like, what the fuck is your actual name? Because it ain't Cy. It must be Simon.
That reminds me of the name of like somebody who worked at the farm during the Depression, and like he was the person who was like watching all the migrant workers come through and work the farm, and he was the one who was like giving them 2 pence for their work for the day. And then after they were done, they all went back to their shanties, and he went back to his room in the big house.
Yeah, well, so they had a little Hair Club for Men spot. You can tell it's WWF in 1994.
Sponsors.
Because the fucking B and C list fucking actors and personalities were in full fucking force. And they had like a spot where like Cy Sperling unveiled his newest project, the Fink, who's been bald since like WrestleMania 1. With a head of hair, and like I said, looked pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
I mean,
it looked like it was supposed to be there.
I accepted it.
Yeah,
I did.
If I didn't know, I wouldn't question it.
Right.
And apparently, you could shower with that, which I don't know how accurate that is. I would like to know.
It sounds made up.
I wonder, is Hair Club? And I know it can't be around anymore. I wonder how long it lasted.
That's a good question.
It might still be around.
Really?
I mean, the industry is huge now for people dealing with hair loss. You know, the science has kind of caught up a little bit. So,
does it even work?
From my understanding, yes, it does. Yeah. You know, I know some people who do actively take.
No shit.
Seriously. It would not be people you would think, but
because they have hair and I don't notice.
But you know, it's a big deal for some people.
Yeah.
You know, when I was in my early to mid 20s, I was paranoid I was going to be bald before I turned 30.
You would bring it up from time to time.
I did. And then, you know, here I am at 41 and I still have pretty much a full head of hair. So
you won.
I feel like in life I managed. And if you know, if I do start to get a little bald spot here or there or anything,
what are you going to do?
I'm just going to let it go. Just going to age.
I was going to say, Mac, your head shape is not conducive to a bald head.
It is not.
So, like, but do you want to be that guy who's holding on?
Did you guys ever see Sloth from Goonies?
Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's what my head looks like, shape-wise, without the hair on it. Not the smile.
I just had a visual, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh at that.
No, that's why I said it.
So, Hair Club for Men is still around.
Is Cy still around?
Would you like to know who their spokesmodels are?
I would love to.
Frankie Muniz from Malcolm in the Middle.
He's balding?
Apparently.
Not anymore. Thanks to
Wow.
Hair Club for Men. Jeremy Piven.
Oh,
That
yeah.
I buy.
Oh, yeah.
He's on front and center on their website
Yeah.
on
Of
the
course
front
he is.
It looks
page.
good. It looks good.
And what's this guy's
Oh,
name?
he was losing that shit he was losing that shit like early 90s.
And Joey Logano, who's a 2-time NASCAR champion.
I don't fuck who that is, but
Nah, you don't.
It's
Good
this
for him.
guy. You had to scroll past Jeremy Piven and Frankie Muniz. But yeah, it's still a real thing.
Yeah.
Pseudo C-level celebrity endorsements.
is
I mean, it's
is
not
Hair
like-
Club for Men like? Obviously, back then it was like a fucking toupee. It was just a really nice toupee. Is it
think
still a
it's-
toupee, or is it actual
it's
pills?
probably medicine at this point.
Yeah, it's... I don't know
What do they call it? Like Propecia allegory?
Propecia is the was the one that I got on when I was like 22, 23 because my primary care doctor is like, oh yeah, it does look like, no, my dermatologist like, yeah, it does kind of look like you're losing your hair a little bit. Here's some Propecia. And then after taking it for a year, I'm like, this is fucking stupid.
You didn't feel like it did anything.
Some people told me that it did, but
You couldn't tell. Probably.
I really couldn't tell. So I was just like, you know what, fuck it. Whatever happens,
Not worth
happens.
it.
Nope.
It looks like the options are like actual like hair implants
Oh shit.
or like
Plugs.
pills and lotions and creams and shit.
There is an entire like treatment process that has evolved over the year for hair loss. Whether it's surgery, if it is hair plugs, if it's cream, lotion, laser hair therapy, like they do all sorts of shit. Listen to any sports talk radio, and every third ad is for at least some type of hair loss company. You know, the Pittsburgh Hair Center, Bosley's.
I remember the name Bosley.
My brother, I do give him props for this. Got to a point where he was just going to different websites and putting my information in, and then for like a stream of 6 months, I just got so many like ads and stuff and things delivered to my house for hair loss.
What a jerk.
So-
That's
That
pretty
guy.
funny.
I don't know how familiar
I
you
thought
guys
that was
are.
pretty good.
I learned about this, and obviously I'm not. Thankfully, I haven't been thinning or anything that I've noticed yet. I went like a year or so ago. I somehow magically, through the YouTube rabbit hole, came across the Man Unit. You guys ever heard of the Man Unit?
No.
Every day, Jones.
You've come across the Man Unit?
Every time I take a shower.
Okay. Well, the Man Unit. You should Google it. Man Unit hair.
Work computer or not work computer?
No, just Man Unit hair.
Okay.
You guys should just do it right now. Man Unit hair.
He's making us do it.
Yeah, because you got to see to believe it. It's
I
for-
mean, how
it's
much
for-
time are we going to spend talking about Bam Bam Bigelow versus Dink
It's
and
for
Doink?
it's for African American males.
It's the best transition because
It's
Bam Bam needed
It's
it.
like not like plugs, but it's a different. It's glue, but it looks fucking fantastic. The before and after pictures. Folks who are listening, do yourself a favor and Google Man Unit hair.
Oh, there it is.
Ain't that some shit? That's a real fucking thing. And there are entire YouTube channels devoted to the Man Unit.
That's what's popping up right
how
now.
about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And they literally take like...
Like, look at the
I have
difference
seen
on some of
this.
these dudes.
Yeah, I have
and look
seen
how
this.
good they look
Wow.
after
Yeah.
that shit, right? That's a real... I got a Man Unit right now.
Yeah.
They're the best fucking one they've ever done. It's like... But yeah, like the fucking... Whether it's pills...
Jones,
or
the hair looks good, by the way, man.
think
I
it's got a cut
gotta call it. I
yesterday.
gotta call it out. Looks good.
I got
Yeah,
a fresh
looks real
cut
good.
yesterday.
Looks real good.
I had to look good for the anniversary dinner, so...
I thought it was for us.
No.
Oh no, I knew it wasn't for us.
No.
Yeah,
No, I like you guys, but not that much.
you don't get that kind of
Come
fade
on,
without.
man.
No, man.
No love.
Not for something that's not aired on television.
That's right. So, speaking of things that shouldn't have been aired on television, I've been really good about my transitions lately.
Yeah, you've been solid.
I've been
Yeah.
trying real hard not to suck at this. Bam Bam Bigelow and Luna Vachon, goddamn rest in peace, both of them. I love Luna Vachon versus Doink and Dink, unfortunately, for 6 fucking minutes. Is the longest 6 minutes of this show.
6 minutes and 9 seconds.
Yeah, it was
Nice.
It was 6 minutes too long.
Nice.
this point in time where Doink was babyface was really weird.
Yeah.
Because, like, why is there, like, a clown that's not a villain?
It's not-
Doesn't make any sense.
Well, when he first debuted, he was a full-on heel. It was
He
it was
was.
good. It
Yeah, he was an
cool.
asshole
And it was
clown.
like really like do 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 dun dun
Yeah.
dun. Like, it was like
So
really fucked
it was
up.
that statement you made about, a clown that's not a villain just defined how you grew up and what shit you watched.
This is true. I probably watched some fucked up shit.
There's never been a fucking clown that he has seen that he has ever trusted in his life.
Oh, fuck, you shouldn't trust clowns anyhow.
No. Seeing Dink reminds me why I don't really like clowns. Like, I was okay with Doink, but seeing a little clown running around, that fucked with me. It was like unnatural. It was
remember
like
the Survivor Series match with Lawler and the Midget Kings versus Doink and Dink and Wink and Pink or whatever his fucking names were.
Twink.
Now you're just naming like ghosts from Pac-Man.
So this match has to exist because people need to get up and go take a piss after Brett and Owen tore the house down.
Yeah.
Let me up match. You get the match where we go get their popcorn, their hot dogs for
this
$7.
is a palate cleanser.
Yeah. So I'm not really going to say anything beyond that other than it happened. Rest in peace, Luna Vachon, who I thought was like ahead of her fucking time. There's a lot of people on this show who were actually ahead of their time. Bam Bam, fuck, man, like young Bam Bam, even Bam Bam here in '94 could fucking move.
He could go.
He
for
really
a big
could
dude.
for a big guy.
Like that was his big draw back in the '80s. Was like big as he's fucking. And he's a big dude. Like could fucking cartwheel and drop kick and fucking move around. Actually, there's a number of really big guys on the show who are fucking fast on their feet, which is really surprising. That's when you're a fucking athlete. You're an athlete.
Yeah.
Well, you're seeing the Undertaker like effect starting to take hold, where you're looking for big guys that can move, because now you have one and it's proven. Go ahead and show me more. I was a little bit perplexed because when you see wrestlers with face paint, right? You see Sting, Ultimate Warrior. There's rarely a match that they have where their face paint doesn't come off. What the fuck was Dink and Doink using that their face paint fucking stayed on? And how fucked would you feel seeing that like makeup come off? Like that would be weird.
I mean, there were plenty of matches with Doink the Clown where the makeup came off.
Yeah, this particular match just wasn't, I think, hard hitting enough. And it was a tag match too.
Yeah.
So it's not like he was perspiring enough.
Yeah.
You go a year earlier with the evil Doink in '93 versus Crush, and that paint was coming off his face for sure. That's such a cool character. Like the evil clown is such a cool character.
Yeah. It was also like kind of uncomfortable just watching Luna beat the shit out of Dink.
Yes.
And I was oddly okay with it.
Then
I've watched some of those videos in my time. It was pretty, edging. It was, pretty familiar.
So Bam Bam wins with the headbutt, and then he and Luna continue to assault Dink and have the most awkward double splash.
I'm pretty sure that was not supposed to play out that way.
No.
Where he's just like rolling around underneath them while they're in the air. It was just not great. Not great at all.
No.
So, what could have been great and wasn't?
Match number 3 in this card.
Macho versus Crush. Now, listen, rest in peace to both of them. Yet again, gone far too long, far too early. First, shout out to Macho Man's snap jab. I swear to God, it's the best snap jab in wrestling history. If you like wrestling, you like Macho snap jab. The match itself, so like the storyline, if I recall correctly, for this feud was like a year earlier, Crush fought Yokozuna.
Correct.
And Yoko like beat his ass.
Yeah. Well, Yoko beat him with whatever his move's called.
Bonsai drop.
Yeah, the bonsai drop. And then after the match, he did it like 3 more times, and like half the locker room came out, and Savage was the last one to come out. And so,
I'm assuming that was
as you do, you hold a grudge for a year, and then you are anti-American.
You align with a guy who left to murder you, which I love wrestling logic.
So weird.
You tried to kill me in the ring. I'm gonna join you.
Yeah. Almost as weird as the fucking rules in this match. Like Falls Count Anywhere is like traditional Falls Count Anywhere.
Right.
Like you can pin somebody wherever the fuck in the building you want. Except in this match, where after you pin them, you have 60 seconds to get back to the ring and get in, or you lose.
So,
which is stupid.
It's so stupid.
I again, I had a question about this. Excuse me. Was that always the case with a Falls Count Anywhere match?
Not as far as I recall.
No.
I've never
That's the
seen
only time
that
I remember it being like that.
before or since. I've never seen that.
I can almost promise you the reason that they made that adjustment to the stipulations was just for the fucking finish. Somebody had the idea for the finish and then developed the match around the fucking finish.
Do we need to talk about the match, or can we just talk about the finish?
Let's get right to the
Let's
finish.
just talk about the
All right,
finish.
so there's a lot to unpack here about the finish. So they go through the tunnel, and they're kind of backstage, and there's just a scaffolding there. All right? I'm like, okay, I'm here for this. The scaffolding's coming down on somebody, and that's how this match is going to go.
No, you thought wrong.
I did. Because there is a rope in the middle of the scaffolding, conveniently attached to a pulley,
Yep.
that apparently Macho Man was never taught how to tie a knot.
He never went to Boy Scouts.
Everything.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
He never went to Boy Scouts to
I know
learn
the
that
whole time
triple
I'm
knot.
watching this, I'm going, Dave's fucking pissed right now.
Listen, it was not that I was pissed, because I was ultimately distracted by something that I saw while the finish was happening. So they're backstage, Macho's tying his foot up, he's, trying to pull him up and everything. And if you look in the right-hand side of the screen, behind where, like, the curtain kind of was, there were, like, two people that were kind of, like, watching.
Yeah.
And I swear to fucking God is my witness, those motherfuckers had cell phones with cameras, and they were recording that shit. They were from the goddamn fucking future.
I don't
excited
remember, I
to see
don't
this
remember
coming.
that.
I'm going to have to go back and watch it.
I was like, what the fuck? I was like, this is 1994. They didn't have cell phone cameras then, but it did look like they had like some type of like, when you watch old wrestling, and on old sports events in general, it's great because nobody's watching anything through a prism of a phone.
Nope, they're just watching the show.
You're experience it in the moment.
There's a great thing that I saw a long time ago. It was a side by side of like Michael Jordan taking a game winning shot in like 1991, and you just see everybody just watching the shot. And then they like fast forward to like Steph Curry taking a game winning shot in like 2018, and everybody's just got their phones up and they're trying to capture it. Like, your fucking camera's gonna take a good enough shot that it actually matters. But I was convinced that time travelers had came back to study that match, and I want to know why. What was so important? Was it the pulley system they needed to redo?
I know what happened.
Tell me.
All right, so hear me out. People from the future came to the past to watch the finish of this match. You ask a question, and it's a really important one. You said, were they always like this? And you're like, no, not as far as I know. Maybe they always were. And now they're not anymore. It's how badly that shit went.
Shit.
Damn. You might be right.
And maybe in an alternate version of life, every Last Man Standing match for the last 30 years, 40 years has been that way. And then they just like, no, we're not doing this anymore. And then they went back to the future and talked to Vince McMahon and said, don't do it anymore.
I think this might have been like Triple H and Stephanie's kids.
Oh, shit.
Right. And they went back to tell Granddad.
It's pretty wild.
While they were still allowed to talk to him.
But I don't know. This match was not great. Macho could have finished the match in the ring, like falls count anywhere, including in the ring.
They have to be outside the
ring.
ring.
They're like, no, let's go back here. And then he does a shitty job of tying him up. And then as he's leaving, he falls on his head. Like, concussion protocol is not a thing in 1994.
You can tell that they did not, like, rehearse that. No. And Macho's thinking it'd be way easier.
He goes headfirst into the concrete floor in the back of Madison Square Garden.
Oh, it was so great. And you could just see, when you have something you have to do on stage in front of an audience, and it starts to go sideways, there is a panic that happens to you quickly. It is a very, very fast, like, avalanche effect when you realize it's not going well and you have to get to it anyways, and you can't let it linger. And that every fucking piece of that happened to Macho Man as he realized he couldn't get that knot.
Imagine that as an actor, and then imagine you being Macho Man as a wrestler, as an actor on cocaine, doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And you're like, you know what? If he falls on his head, that's on him.
He used his goddamn teeth to help fucking...
he did.
And he still couldn't get the job
No,
done.
he couldn't. He couldn't. Nobody... They could have had a fucking, like, Boy Scout just sit there with Macho Man for 10 minutes, like, in the afternoon or on Saturday, and just, like, this is how you go ahead and tie a quadruple lug nut. I don't know what the fuck they're called, but they could have easily done that. But no. They're like, oh, you got this, Macho, don't you?
Just fucking tie him.
Macho's like, I can tie my boots all the time.
Tie him up. I'm going to,
And that was his last televised match.
That's such a fucking shame. That's so fucking sad.
And then he went on commentary before he went to WCW.
Oh, man.
Fun fact, Macho, when his contract was up, agreed to re-sign with the WWF, and Vince wanted him specifically to not wrestle anymore, which was a big thing for Macho, because he felt like he still had more gas in the tank, which obviously he had way more left in the tank, and Vince was just wrong, and was really trying to push this new generation of wrestler, which I get, but, it's fucking Macho Man, for Christ's sake. And so Macho had gotten an offer from WCW for a lot of money. Hogan was already going. It was a whole ass thing, and he got fucking drunk, hammered, and called Vince and quit. That's like a legend. Imagine a drunk ass Macho Man calling. Maybe I quit. I ain't gonna take it no more.
Let's just hope you dialed the right number. Oh, there's this. Hey, Stephanie, this is Macho Man. I'm just letting you know that I'm. And then,
hey man,
and Vince answers his phone like, Macho.
Oh boy,
Randy.
I like to. Look,
it's one of those. They still lived in the same house, so it's like they're both on the same phone, so they're all talking at the same time.
One day when we're older, much older, that story will come out. What actually happened or did not happen. I hope I'm alive when it happens.
I feel pretty convinced that nothing happened.
It's so fucking weird that he never came back. He's the singular fucking entity.
Yeah.
Of all the big, mega fucking stars that Vince made peace with.
Mm-hmm.
Not Macho? Hogan. Warrior, for crying out fucking loud. Twice! Fucking twice! Bret fucking Hart. There's so many wrestlers, not even prominent ones, who've shit-talked Vince. Quit in bad ways. But Macho? Unless there's a fucking reason.
Yeah.
There's some underlying thing there that I guess we will never know.
Yeah.
Drives me crazy because I'd like to fucking know, for real.
Maybe it was the heat of passion between Vince and Macho. Maybe the Slim Jim that Macho was snapping into was actually Vince's.
Pat Patterson just cucking in the corner.
Yep. Edging, if you will.
I don't know how many times you fucking said that word today.
We still got
But
5 matches.
Too many times.
We still got 5 matches.
Anyhow, so yeah, match wasn't great. Rip Macho, Rip Crush, snap into a Slim Jim. Next up, we actually have. It wasn't a terrible match for what it was. It was 3 minutes and 20 seconds. Leilani Kai, who was in WrestleMania 1, which is pretty cool, versus Medusa. Fuck, I hate that Alundra Blaze name. Now, Medusa is so fucking far ahead of her fucking time. You could just pluck her up and put her into the women's wrestling now.
Absolutely.
And she'd fucking excel like no one's.
was.
She's in fucking fantastic fucking shape.
Yeah.
She'd wrestled all over the fucking world at this point. She was an accomplished. She wrestled in Japan, where they take women's wrestling very fucking seriously. Yep. And she's here with fucking Leilani Kai, who's here for a fucking paycheck, basically.
Yeah.
And can we appreciate... Okay, match was fine. There are two things. One is one of the most pivotal moments in my young life. And it's cool that I get to say this on the air in front of my friends. But before I get to that, let's acknowledge that even in 1994... Mae Young and Moolah looked old as shit. They showed Mae Young and Moolah, folks. If you don't know who they are, they're just fucking seminal women's wrestlers from back in the fucking 50s.
I look at that like I look at old baseball players. If you go back and look at pictures of old baseball players, it's oh, here's Honus Wagner. He's 23 and he looks like damn near 60. That's what I think preservatives and food eventually kept us from aging quite the way that we did before.
Was he alive during the Great Depression? Is he that old? I don't know who that guy is.
Oh, Honus Wagner was the early 1910s.
Oh, sure. Life was hard then, man.
Oh, it was.
So it was. That makes sense. He looked the way he fucking did that.
But most old baseball players, prior to 1940, prior to the wars, kind of all had that look. They looked like they were 60 when they were 25 or 30.
Did you say his name was Onus?
Honus.
Hannes.
Yes.
What kind of fucked up name is that?
German? No, Dutch. He was a Flying Dutchman.
Hannes. Yeah. Is he from?
He's from Pittsburgh. He actually was born and raised in Carnegie. One of the original inductees into the Baseball Hall of Fame, considered the greatest shortstop to have ever played the game, has a statue outside of PNC Park. His baseball card is the most coveted piece of memorabilia in all of sports, because baseball cards, when they were out, were given in cigarette packs. And Hannes Wagner was And Hannes Wagner was very much against smoking. So he told them, you better fucking stop doing it. And they had to. So there's only so many like Hannes Wagner baseball cards that ever existed. And I know a lot about this too, because Hannes Wagner's best friend was my dad's uncle.
No shit.
Wow.
But it's not just him. It's a whole bunch of old
I'm just really
athletes
stuck
and
on his
stuff.
fucking name.
Yeah.
That's a fucking shitty name.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what his parents' names were. It's probably fucking Sarah and Michael. How dare you do that to that poor child? Anyhow.
Yeah.
He
You know what
did.
you
He
fucking
did all right
did
for
to him.
himself.
Yeah.
Did he though?
Despite his name.
He's got a museum in Carnegie.
Did he die rich?
No, I think he just died.
Well, you know, then he didn't do that
He
well.
just died.
Listen, sometimes you don't have to die rich. You can just die, and that's still pretty good.
I guess.
Dying normal is,
see a lot of-
is still better than a lot
Dave,
of other
I see
people.
a lot of death now. It's not the same.
Oh.
Anyhow, so another pivotal moment in my life.
Not
that
Mae
helped-
Young.
No.
She fucked Mark Henry.
But it
You
took
know that?
place in this match.
Birth
And
the hand.
It's funny how something becomes a part of your vernacular, and you don't know where it comes from. You just forget totally where it comes from. And then you realize where it comes from. And I'm like, this is like... So, there's a moment in the match where Jim Ross, if only, Jerry Lawler,
I got 2 notes here. Go for it.
he says... Because I've used this line so many fucking times.
I think I have it written down here.
She's got $1 million
wait.
body with a 10-cent
There it
face.
is.
I swear to God.
I was just gonna ask you. Are we talking about that right there?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, we are.
Lawler was full on Lawler in this
He
match.
was on his fucking A game. This is his first WrestleMania.
Yeah.
He had to he already flubbed the first 30 seconds of him talking at the fucking show, so he had to fucking make up for that. But yeah, that fucking line has been a part of my fucking brain since around then, I guess. I don't know. It just fucking stays with you.
Jones watched this again, and like 10 years of therapy just fell off.
They're like, oh, yeah, because I don't have to make another appointment.
Yeah. I also like when King refers to Blaze as a horse. He's like, yeah, it's nice to see her on 2 feet. Usually see her, she's
Oh my God.
on all 4s because she's ugly as a horse.
Motherfucking.
And I'm
Lawler.
like, fucking... I also had a note here where they like said at 120 pounds. I'm like, motherfucker, Alundra Blaze, you don't have legs like she does and be 120 pounds.
Well, how tall is she?
It doesn't matter. She's fucking built like a brick shithouse. Like you said, she was not built like a WWE diva. She was built like a fucking wrestler.
Yeah.
And I, not seeing a lot of Alundra Blaze or Medusa stuff in my time, that was one thing that I really noted, is that she really had the body of a wrestler that you would see today. That is, really here for wrestling and not there for, bikini matches and everything else Lawler would hoot and holler about.
I also indirectly blame her for the Montreal screw job. And I don't know how much research you guys did on this.
I
feel
know
Jeff
all about- I
knows.
know about
You know
that.
about this.
Yeah, I know
They're
about
throwing
that.
the fucking championship in the
Yep.
trash can on fucking Nitro.
Yep.
And Vince is like, never again. Not this time, pal. And that's a fair fear. And Medusa has come out, and Medusa Maselli has come out and over the years and regrettably admitted that she shouldn't have done that. But she was, according to her, and of course Bischoff says, no, that didn't happen. She says she was coerced by Bischoff to do it. I feel like he fucking did.
Yeah.
yeah.
He wanted to get, how much of a boon would that be? Even if it's just the WWF Women's Championship, which means fucking nothing.
Yeah.
To come out on live TV, on your premiere
It
show.
sends a statement to the competition without a doubt.
Drop that shit,
Yeah.
the trash
Yeah.
can.
Yeah.
Can you imagine Bret Hart showing up on Nitro with a WWF title and going, kadoonsh.
But it's wild because like today, something like that, if something like that happened, like it would be all over social media. There'd be all this buzz about it. In this particular case, there was no social media. There was no internet.
Yeah.
But everybody was fucking talking
That's a
about
big
it.
fucking thing
That's
to do.
So
That's super
that's a smart business play
Yeah.
if you're the competition.
It's one of those seminal moments in wrestling. It's still a big fucking deal today. We're still talking about it. It set a standard of things to come. It definitely fueled into Vince's paranoia. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I love that it happened. They always say like, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Publicity is publicity, and it just shined a light on wrestling. And it's like, holy shit, we're in for some stuff coming up here. And obviously we got it.
Yeah.
I mean, did the Monday Night Wars really happen if that shit doesn't happen?
Yeah, it still would have, for sure.
Yeah.
It was inevitability.
But that was
a big part.
It was a declaration of war.
I would go with that.
It was.
In some ways, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll go with that. So we got Men on the Mission versus the Quebecers. I'm literally going to say two things about this. I give Mo credit. Motherfucker can move, and so can Mabel. But Mo, I don't remember him being so fucking agile for low center of gravity that he had. Like he did. I mean, he's not a big guy, but he's a wide guy. But he had a nice vertical leap. And Mabel, who's the star of the fucking team, obviously, could also move as big as shit as he was. He was coming off his feet more than you think he should.
I'm convinced that Mabel doesn't have an upper body. I'm convinced that it's just legs, and hips, all the way to his shoulders, and his neck's just on top of it, and his arms are like on the outside of his legs.
It's like he's like a very large version of like the All Real Monsters guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You 80s kids know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I commented that, like, if a child drew a picture of a person and they had never drawn a picture of a person before, and somehow they wished that into life, that was him.
It was Mabel.
It was Mabel.
Just a ball with a head.
Like fucking square. Like, if you remember, like, the old Muscle Men, like, figures and everything, there was that one Muscle Man that was like a fucking, like, gate, and he just had a head on the top.
Yeah.
That is basically Mabel. Yeah.
Yeah, this match was 7 minutes. Yet another match that did not need to be on the show, although it was fine. It was, the kids are into it. It's whoop, there it is. I get it, and it was like the thing to be a part of, I guess.
It's a weak ass finish.
Yeah.
Well.
Yep.
Finish by count out. They celebrate with the belts like they won them. And it's like, oh, wait, no, we don't actually win these. They'll win them a few weeks later and then lose them 2 days after that.
Shout out to Raven / Johnny Polo for making a WrestleMania appearance.
I forgot
Yeah,
that
I did forget that too.
with them.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a while because I had to pause it. I'm like, where the fuck do I know him from?
Yeah, he wasn't wearing the leather jacket.
No,
then.
he wasn't.
Yeah.
No, but like that also kind of, I always give people shit that, like, if you take your glasses off, you're Superman, but if you put your glasses on, you're Clark Kent. When I see things like that, I get it. Mm-hmm. Because if he had the leather jacket on, oh yeah, it's fucking Raven. He had a green jacket on. I'm like, I don't fucking know who this Masters
Johnny Polo
golf
guy.
person is. Jesus Christ.
So, okay. Now we're up to a main event match. Yokozuna versus Lex fucking Luger. 14 minutes and 40 seconds. Can we appreciate the fact that Donnie Wahlberg was being booed? I love that shit. I'm here for that. Yokozuna, for my money, I know we've talked episodes ago about generational talents. He's a generational talent.
Yeah.
Before his weight got ahead of him, unfortunately, and it fucking sucks that it did, before that happened, that first 2 years of his career was just phenomenal movement.
So good, yeah.
The dude's flexibility, how fast he was.
A guy that big should not move like that.
This fucking Samoans, man.
Yeah.
They are on a fucking other level when it comes to athleticism, professional wrestling, period. They could just do things no one else, people their size can't do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of cool that the Bloodline was main eventing WrestleMania 10.
Before the Bloodline was the Bloodline.
Yeah.
Yoko was out there fucking doing it.
That's pretty wild.
Even though we're masking a Samoan as a Japanese sumo wrestler, but I mean, it was a sign of the times.
It really was. And I've established many times I'm not a fan of Lex Luger's work at all. I'm really not a fan of him much. But he put his working boots on for this match.
Yeah.
And he did do okay.
I think WWF at the time was really trying to make Luger the next Hogan. Like, they were pushing him
You know
hard.
how they could have done that? By giving him the fucking title that night.
Yeah, they didn't do that.
For some reason, they just did not pull the trigger. And I'm not sure why Vince... Because it was like, well, I mean, obviously, he body slammed him at the Intrepid. This is obviously a thing. So give him the belt, give him the strap. And they just never pulled the trigger on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, we get Mr. Perfect as the guest referee. And, props to Mr. Perfect from going head to toe guest referee.
True.
And, later on we get Roddy Piper as the guest referee who did not go head to toe.
He just went Piper.
Yeah, he just went Piper.
Yeah.
Props to Mr. Fuji for collecting a check.
I definitely wrote in here because it's always amusing how Fuji just straight no-sells everything.
Yeah.
He gives 0 fucks.
He, you hit him and he kind of wobbles and just kind of lays down.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because he's in his age or he just literally does not give a fuck.
Yeah. So it's funny that you bring up Luger, and I think I have an idea why he never quite got over. He was never quite the Hogan that they wanted. And I did a little research on this, guys, and I actually did a 23andMe on Lex Luger, and I got the results back.
Okay.
And I wanted to read you guys back what the DNA of Lex Luger actually is.
Please
All
do.
right. So 37% of Lex Luger, Western European, Scottish and German descent. Yeah. 27% flag. Yeah. Yeah, 27% flag. A lot of
Any
patriot.
specific flag?
The American flag.
Okay.
Yeah, a lot
Just
of
make sure.
patriotism there.
Over a quarter
Just
of him is
clarifying for the
flag.
listeners
Yeah,
so they know what we're talking
over
about.
a quarter of his flag. 17% bullfrog.
Okay.
Just look at his face.
Didn't have that on. I've never made that connection, but okay. I see it now.
You'll never not see it again.
Nice.
8% cock.
I mean, that's a lot for one person.
Jesus Christ.
The average man's only 3%.
He fucking his dick was in the ring for 2 minutes before he left the backstage. I mean, I didn't try to make a comment on his package, but I couldn't not. It was fucking
Dave. He is the total package.
Jesus Christ. I get it.
I mean, 8%, that's a
I
lot.
get it. Yeah.
He is the fucking total package.
Yeah.
Lex Luger. Jesus Christ.
6% Tanner.
How much of is he fucking oil?
I think that's kind of in the 6%.
It's
blended.
in the point
Yeah.
two.
It's a blend.
It's a blend. Yeah. 3% mullet and just 2% steroid. Yeah.
I expected more steroids.
Well, 2 years ago he was way more steroid.
Yeah. Yeah. But
It was the steroid trial time
Oh yes.
in wrestling.
yeah. But that dude didn't have an ounce of fat on him.
No, God no.
No.
He's in a fucking phenomenal shape.
Yeah. Yeah, his fucking legs, you don't see legs like that fucking guy had. It's just muscles just from top to bottom. So yeah, 2% steroid. So, yeah.
Shout out 23andMe.
Thank you, 23andMe. If you guys feel like tossing us a sponsorship, we're not going to say no.
Shit, we're not going to say no.
The Nothin Good podcast brought to you by Arby's and 23andMe.
So yeah, so the match was okay.
Yeah.
I love the 1994 bullshit chant at the end, at the finish. That was very much not PG. I love it.
Yeah.
I thought that the Yoko was on another level. His speed, his agility, believability, right? There was we had Bam Bam, who's on the show. Great talent. Mabel, fine talent. Big as shit. Can move, right? But not like Yoko can move. Not at all. The man is throwing fucking super kicks. Who the fuck? How dare you defy gravity like that with your fucking limbs?
Are Samoans just genetically dispositioned to super kick? Their fibers and their muscles just naturally go in that direction?
It's as the kids say, he's built different.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly.
You know who also is built different that's in this match? Jim Cornette.
His jacket, man.
He stole that shit from Brett's fucking prototype closet.
I have that Jim Cornette looks like he thrift shopped that for Michael Jackson's closet. You guys have a minute or two for a couple Jim Cornette jokes?
Of course.
I would love for him to hear this and then just go off on you.
I hope so. There's one or two here where he might not be able to come back from it, but we'll see.
Bold claim, sir.
It is. So, Jim Cornette looks like what happens when the bad guy's best friend from every 80s movie grows up and needs to find a job. I'm looking at you, Jeremy Piven. Looking at you, Jeremy Piven. Jim Cornette looks like the kind of guy who would go to TGI Fridays and he would order the Jack Daniel's sizzling chicken and shrimp, eat about 95% of that shit, and then ask the manager to come over because one of the shrimp was slightly undercooked, and then ask them to take it off the bill. Jim Cornette in this match had an expression on his face that I swear to God he fathered the Babadook.
Babadook.
I'll bet Jim Cornette asks strippers to break mid-sized bills while they're on stage dancing.
Mid-size.
Yeah. Just goes with tens and nobody knows why. Jim Cornette isn't opposed to pulling over on the side of the road and pleasuring himself on a cacti.
On a cacti?
On a cacti.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll bet Jim Cornette believes The Rise of Skywalker was a satisfying ending to the Skywalker saga. Yeah. Jim Cornette looks like the kind of guy who would steal his neighbor's newspaper every morning and when asked about it, blames the other neighbor. Who's from Ethiopia. Jim Cornette's face permanently looks like the expression you get when you think you're walking into a 15-year-old's kitchen, but you find Chris Hansen from Datelines To Catch a Predator instead, and Chris invites you to sit down.
Jesus Christ.
Wow. Okay.
He's a racist fuck. Fuck him. Jim Cornette is permanently banned from New Mexico because he called the population of Santa Fe New Mexicans.
Wow.
So, just a little bit of Jim Cornette there, everybody.
Good job.
Yeah. Fuck him.
So, next match.
Yeah, so how the match finishes.
Just can't put your hands on the ref. That's what I got from this.
So
Luger takes out Mr. Fuji, that's what I said.
Not the fucking mountain.
Or camera.
He takes out Jim Cornette, and he gives a gentle shove to Mr. Perfect, and that was enough for him to get disqualified.
It's such a weird finish. It's a pay-per-view of weird finishes.
Yeah, it is. That's a good call. And I thought that was actually a pretty good match.
It was fine.
Outside of Brett and Owen, obviously we don't have a whole lot to kind of build off of in this pay-per-view.
There's not a lot of substance.
But this one had some stuff to chew on. It definitely did. And you had 3 big names in there too.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah.
There was a lot of weight carried in this match from just the people that were in it.
And then it was supposed to set up a feud between Mr. Perfect and Lex Luger that ultimately never happened due to injury.
Yeah.
So
Surprise,
it was all
surprise.
for naught.
Yeah. But this is all. We'll never know. I mean, was the bloom off the rose for Lex? Who knows what the plan was? But they never really went with him. But you swear to God, you'd think earlier in the year or the year prior rather that like he was like the guy.
Yeah.
It's gonna strap the rocket ship to his back. We're going to the goddamn moon, and they just sort of
Yeah.
no
not
wonder
gonna
he
do
left
that.
and went back to WCW. He's like, fuck this. Listen, a year later. At WrestleMania 11, he's in the fucking tag team with the British fucking Bulldog. I think they're the Allied Powers or some shit. Like, talk about a fall, unfortunately. So next up. So now at this point, Yoko's still champion. There's some chicanery with that match, whatever, but it's going to be Yoko and Brett. So, we have Earthquake versus Atom Bomb. And let me tell you, I've got a lot to fucking say about this match. Let me fucking tell you something about Earthquake, John Tenta.
Can I time this?
And Atom Bomb. Yeah,
Okay.
oh yeah. So next up we have HBK versus Razor Ramon. And what is one of the greatest ladder matches of all time. But in all seriousness, rest in peace, Earthquake, who died when he was 42 of some kind of cancer. I can't remember now. Too fucking young. But I have a serious question for you motherfuckers. Without looking, you might already know. Give me your honest, not trying to be smart opinion, but your honest opinion. How old do you think, just by optics alone, Earthquake is in this match in 1994? I'll wait.
If I recall, he was in his late 20s? Like 28-ish?
Looking at him objectively, I
Yes.
would say he's like 43.
That motherfucker was 30 years old.
Ooh.
How dare you look like that when you're 30? Like, he looked like he was older than me and you
Yeah.
and you.
Shit ages people differently, you know?
Well, I don't know what aged him. I don't. He was
Monsoons, typhoons, other natural disasters.
He was a very successful, somewhat successful sumo wrestler before he got into wrestling. but I feel like that didn't age him. Although he said it was very difficult. It was hard on his body though. Just in general, sumo wrestling is very intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, this match just kind of happened.
It wasn't really even a match. I mean,
No.
they rang the bell, and then they rang the bell 30 seconds later when it was over.
I must feel like they rang the bell on a dare.
But it was Harvey Whippleman came out to verbally assault Fink.
This was the whole purpose of that match, was just to push that storyline along.
And then Atom Bomb came out, and then Earthquake came out to make the save, and they're like, "Oh, there's 2 wrestlers in there. Ring the bell," and they did, and then they rang it again.
I used to be
'Cause
such
it
a
was
fan
over
of
that fast.
Adam Bomb when I was a kid, man. I thought he was just like he was like a professional wrestler, looking a professional wrestler.
Yeah.
Like, he was
Yeah.
an action figure.
Yeah.
He was jacked. He had the look about him, and for some
Yeah, he
reason,
looked like an '80s action figure,
and he
without a
also
doubt.
never really got where he needed to be. It's amazing.
Yeah.
I don't remember if his promo was any good. Now maybe that's what it was. That really what could be. And interestingly, 5 years later, only 5 years later, how much wrestling changes in 5 years? 5 years later, him and fucking Crusher Chronic on WCW. Fucking Chronic.
Wild.
Yeah.
That's some shit.
That's some shit.
5 years. That's all
Yeah.
it was. It feels like a lifetime between 95 and 90, or 99 and 94.
Wrestling, I think we've talked about this before in the podcast. Wrestling time does not move at the same speed as in regular time.
Yeah.
You know, when you think about like 6 or 7 or 8 months in wrestling time, it feels like 2.5 years. To me.
Right.
It just moves at a very different pace. So,
I'm with you on that.
yeah.
Obviously, Jim Cornette, one of those brilliant minds in wrestling, a true wrestling fan, a historian, not a great guy, apparently, unfortunately, because he's a fucking promo, man. He's such a goddamn promo.
Even these days, like, he's on a lot of like the documentary shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like he's so interesting to listen to because
'Cause
he
he knows
has
his
so
shit.
many stories and he
He's
just fucking
been there.
He
Yeah.
gets it and he's seen it and he's experienced it. And you're like, this is all legit. Everything
Up
he's
until
saying
I
is
found
legit.
out about what was the shit that had said and done. I've been listening to his podcasts, both of them actually, because they're fucking interesting. Unfortunately, I don't listen to them anymore, which is unfortunate. But like, just he's a well of knowledge. Like, he knows wrestling. He knows, and not just like the wrestling that he experienced even as a kid. He knows the history of wrestling. That's his jam.
Yeah.
That's his existence.
Right.
That's who he is as a human being.
Yeah.
And I'll always, have a place in my appreciation for his what he's done for wrestling, because the greatest OVW class of all time that turned out some of the best wrestlers we've ever had in the modern era was under his watch. So that says something about his understanding of wrestling. So,
He gets it.
but yeah, he's a fucking promo. He always was. So okay, Razor and HBK. I don't really want to talk about this match that much, because we talked about it already.
We have. For the sake of this match, because of how we're covering it in this podcast, when Razor Ramon goes to do his finishing move, we refer to it as the Razor's edging.
No.
I mean, you can. I'm not. I will say that 3 best friends working in, at the time, the biggest WrestleMania of all time, in one of the biggest, most famous arenas of all time, it doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, this is the quintessential ladder match of
Yeah.
all ladder
Now,
matches.
there was something that was said earlier, and I think it was before we started recording. I feel like we've had this discussion when we talked about the ladder match when we were doing our favorite matches.
Episode 65 available in the archives.
Yeah, check it out. It's a good episode.
Favorite wrestling matches. We talked for a long time about this particular
We
match.
did.
And I will correct you, Mr. McDonald. This is not the first WWF ladder match ever. Brett and Shawn was the first ladder
First televised pay-per-view
Yeah, so this was
ladder
like
match.
that match was the fucking prototype for this match. And ironically, it was Brett's idea, because Brett was always right.
Because he knew it would look great on film.
Because in Stampede,
he's cinematic.
They did ladder matches in Stampede Wrestling. That's the thing. Like, I don't know if they originate in Stampede. I have no clue, but they did have ladder matches in Stampede, and he had that idea for the Intercontinental title with him and Shawn. And it's a fucking fantastic match too. If you could imagine Brett and Shawn a goddamn ladder match, it's good.
Yeah.
I wonder if it's on the cock. I feel like it is. Maybe it probably isn't. But this match, fantastic. I mean, everybody knows it's fantastic.
So good.
If you've never seen Razor Ramon and the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 10 a ladder match, fucking watch it. You don't have to even like wrestling that much. It's just a really good match.
Perfectly maintained chest hair in this match.
Everybody was very well groomed.
It was. Everybody was very well groomed in this match, for sure.
Mullets were flowing.
Oh God, it was beautiful.
So many mullets.
Beautiful. Man, when you see Scott Hall walk out and 289 pounds.
He's a big motherfucking guy.
Big motherfucking guy, man. Like, I almost thought that he didn't need the ladder. He could just reach.
Yeah.
Just, like, try to grab it.
Scott Hall's a big dude.
And, seeing Scott Hall in his glory and grandeur.
That's his prime
And,
right there.
and
So good.
The two of them just sold for each other so fucking hard in this match, too. Like, every single move looked like it was the hardest punch, or it was the biggest kick, or it was Michaels going over the ropes was selling like he was falling out of an airplane.
He sells everything
Oh my
so good.
God, in this match, he sells it so good. Obviously, I have an affinity for this match, and I have an affinity for ladder matches in general, but it's the prototype. I mean, there's so many spots in this match that happen that you just see almost in every ladder match because it's like you have to pay homage at some point to it. Great.
The difference is ladder matches today have 20 ladders.
Yeah.
Back then they had one ladder.
Yeah.
And it was looking pretty fucked up by the end of the match.
That match,
but it still worked enough
that ladder went through some
they got
shit.
up there.
Yeah. Yeah, when Scott gets the belts and the ladder just kind of gives way and he just fucking straight falls to the ring. I'm like, oh my God. Like, even that's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Everything about it.
Yeah. And I mean, this match has like two of the most iconic wrestling shots captured ever, which is Michaels doing the frog splash and Razor on top of the ladder with the two belts.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
That
it's
is the
fucking
money shot
icon.
Yeah.
of the whole pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was the Razor holding the belts
Yeah.
up. Because, listen, Brett and Owen were fantastic. You think about WrestleMania 10, you think about this match.
Yep.
Period.
You always think about this match.
Yep. I do. I'm soaking wet right now just thinking about it.
Thanks. Thanks for that. I do have a bone to pick with the cock here, ironically. Let me tell you something.
This shit writes itself, man.
It might as well. So after this match, there was a little video package. Back in the day, before they had mastered their video packages. But interestingly enough, this video package in 1994, the WWF was still better than anything WCW was fucking pulling off.
Because WCW got a
1997.
WCW. That's what they do.
They do.
So anyhow, I mentioned earlier in the episode, I've watched the show so many times. So I was actually kind of looking forward to this video package. So like, oh man, I forgot about this shit. Okay, cool. Like, it's a cool Brett Yoko video package.
You got ads.
No, I don't know. I don't get it. Fuck you, yeah.
No, they show them now. I still see the video packages.
Yeah.
That's not when it's happening live.
I know
Who's got money for that shit?
that
I don't.
WWE is a billion-dollar company. Billions.
With a B.
A big-ass B. So they have money to throw around on things like rights for songs. So you guys watched this shit, and you heard that shit-ass country music that they
Oh,
played.
it was real fucking bad,
And
man.
I'm sitting there like, what in the fuck
What
is
in
this?
the ass?
See, if I were you, I would have watched the VHS.
I didn't expect that.
Not because of the convenience, just because of like the nostalgia of it.
Well, I didn't. I would have had I known that fucking song was gonna not play. And I don't even like country, but it's an actual real country song that plays, like a pop country song with lyrics. It's called "You Start the Fire," or is it? Maybe not. Actually, I don't
Is it
remember
Garth
now.
Brooks?
Maybe it's not. I actually don't remember the name of the
I don't
song.
remember.
But either way, it ain't that shit. And I was so fucking irritated. But at least they didn't change the fucking Yoko music for some reason, because there's no lyrics.
Yeah.
But it was cool though. Like, they're starting to step into the video package time. Like, that was like that's the very first WrestleMania video package ever. I just realized that.
I looked at it as, everybody's got to start somewhere, where the video packages are concerned. So, hey, we have video packages, we can do this.
We can package the videos.
Is
And
it
then-
8% video package?
Hold on, let me check my notes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
there you go.
8%. can you imagine the person who walked into Vince's office and said, I want to show you something? And then they play like the way that they cut them now, you know, which are some of the greatest cinematic anything that you're ever going to see.
Listen,
like,
they are world class.
They are.
They are actual leaders in like this field. Like their studio, the people they have working for them are they're magicians.
They're so fucking
They
good.
do have entertainment in their name. That's what the E stands for.
At the time, it was an F.
What the fuck's a federation? Anyhow, so for 10 minutes and 38 seconds, we get Bret Hart versus Yokozuna. Both guys were beat up. Yoko was knocked out, right? Which I dig.
Yep.
Which if you connected the dots, it made sense how the finish worked. Bret's knees all busted up from Owen, and it's cool because it's a rematch from the previous year. So
this was the first time we had back-to-back main events. Now it's commonplace.
Yeah, good call.
Like we had Cody and Roman the past 2 years.
We've had Rock Cena a couple of times.
Yeah, but this was the first time that we had Bret and Yoko compared to Bret and Yoko the next year.
Yeah. The match was serviceable. It wasn't amazing. It was okay. It was 10 minutes. Bret won, so the fans went home happy, which was the important part.
Yeah.
Let's never let Burt Reynolds be a fucking ring announcer ever again.
Yeah.
No.
He did a shit sloppy ass job.
Yeah.
I love when these fucking celebrities get on here and act like they don't know what the fuck they're doing with a microphone.
Yeah, it's not great. It's not a good look. What I was interesting about this match, like it was an okay match, and Bret wins the belt, which is a big deal, and we see the big celebration at the end, which we'll get to. But it was interesting. This is one of the few matches where Bret is the underdog.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And not just because of his knee getting worked by Owen early in the night, just like in the general sense of things. It's like Yoko's the guy. He's this immovable force. Mm-hmm. And Bret is the underdog, you're rooting for the underdog no matter what. And they delivered the fan service that I think we expected in this particular match.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and the finish, even though I think it's weak sauce,
yeah,
it makes sense. He had been knocked out earlier in the night. His head ain't right. He falls off. He slips.
Yeah, he just
hits the back of his head.
Yeah.
He's out. It makes sense. But I would much whereas the finish between Bret and Owen made sense because the wrestler got out wrestled. Right? I dig that. The excellence of execution got executed excellently. Right? That makes sense.
How long did you practice that?
Which part?
What you just said.
Excellently executed?
Yeah, the excellence of execution was excellently executed. Executed excellently.
At least 32 years. So, there's that.
You did good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I
No,
tried.
that wasn't a critique. That was a compliment.
I hope
Rolled right off the tongue. I couldn't do that shit. I'd stutter all over the place.
It sounded like a critique, but then he turned it around.
I appreciate
Didn't
that.
mean it. Didn't mean if it did. I'm still thinking about how I can work edging into the conversation here.
Thank God Edge isn't in this fucking pay-per-view.
Well, you just said a lot of.
Can you imagine if we fucking covered any show with Edge? Jesus fucking.
Hold on, I got to make a note on that so don't forget about that later.
What I thought watching this pay-per-view back, because Bret wins and the whole locker room comes out and they're all celebrating with him. Even Luger comes out and they're all celebrating. And then we get Owen comes out, makes his way down, stops about halfway down the ramp, gives his brother the fuck you look.
Oh, man. He was like this motherfucker.
Like,
he's still...
You lost 2 hours ago. Like, you don't even deserve to be in there. Like, that should be me. Gives him the look and then leaves. But, like, in retrospect, it's very rare that we get, like... And I don't remember it after WrestleMania 10 until WrestleMania 40, where literally the entire locker room comes
it was
out
30 years later.
when the face wins, and it's like it's the transition to a new era, and it was just such a unique thing, like coming off of WrestleMania 40 a couple weeks ago and seeing everyone come to Cody in that same sort of moment of the climax, if you will. When you pass edging and you get to the climax of WrestleMania, like that's what it's supposed to feel like. I did that just for you, Dave. But then watching this show back, and it's like, man, it's almost like an identical finish.
It
This
is.
was so good, Jeff. That was so good.
Bring it full circle,
That
man.
full circle.
Yeah.
Saying our first rodeo. This is episode 89, bro.
Hey, Owen coming out.
I need to get you the T-shirt from Steel City that just says "Second Rodeo."
Oh. And Savage comes to the ropes and says, opens the door like, "Come on down, man, come in." And they're all the faces like, "It's your brother, come on." And which is sort of what I was alluding to earlier. Like, to me, like that solidified Owen as the heel. Like that solidified him as a star. Because it's one thing to have a match, and it was a great fucking match, and go over and look better for it. But it's another thing to put a period on that sentence. And because the real story isn't Brett winning, right? The real story is, Owen comes out to really get a good look at this shit. And while being invited to the ring, as opposed to putting aside his differences, to embrace his brother, who deep down he loves, right? Instead of doing that, the jealousy, the bitterness, the resentment, it's too much. He just shakes his fucking head like, "No, I can't fucking do that.
Yeah.
I won't do it. You don't deserve this from me." And that feud would dip in and out over the next several years until 1997 when the Hart Foundation gets reformed. But to me, like that was the moment in WrestleMania 10 that was like, that's the fucking heel Owen Hart.
It always comes back to the why. And in that moment, you saw it. And like, fuck.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a great post-credit sequence. It's the note that I made with that, is that it just felt like, the hero at the end of the second episode, got a victory but didn't win the war. And the war is reminding him that, this shit ain't over. So I just love that. I thought that was a great way to tie the beginning of the pay-per-view back to the end of the pay-per-view and also set things up moving forward.
Absolutely. I mean, they proceed to have quite a feud for a longer. But yeah, the pay-per-view is WrestleMania fucking 10. It's a great show. It has its weaknesses, but it's held up by some solid storytelling and some really solid, memorable, legendary, iconic matches that you don't get an opportunity to have so many in a show. More than one in a show is a big deal. And we got two solid ones that people think about and talk about to this day. So please go out of your way to watch it if you've never seen this pay-per-view. I mean, we can look past Rhonda Shears and fucking Wahlberg and Burt Reynolds and just look at, the story that was being told. And last thing I'll really say about it is that I really dug that, just like you said, Jeff, like it was a new era. And that's what Vince says. This is a brand new era in the WWF, because even though Brett was the main event of WrestleMania 9 with Yoko, two new generation wrestlers, Hogan left with the title, that son of a bitch. He left as the big name. This is the first time he does not leave. He's not even there. He wasn't even there. He's not even there. And I think that's super special because it was the new direction. Savage doesn't wrestle WrestleMania ever again. Like, it's a whole new Undertaker, Brett, Shawn, Diesel, Razor, Kid, Hunter's, a couple years away. Like, all these other these talents. And they're still working their magic. They're still getting the dust off. They're still working the rust off the kinks and everything. But eventually, they will become a media powerhouse, which is crazy to think in just that short amount. 30 years is a long time, but
Yeah.
is it though?
And it's interesting if you look over sort of the history of 40 years of WrestleMania. Like, obviously, like, WrestleMania season is the culmination of a year's worth of storytelling every year. So it's like, this is the bookend. It always starts right after last year's WrestleMania. Then they have the draft, and then they rebuild storylines. But there's just some of these, like, long-term storytelling components and some of these feuds that start before and then start after as a result of that. But every so many years, you see, like, a big shift from, like, one whole era of wrestling, not just the individual stories, but the greater book of the whole, like, take the chapter aspect out of it. And WrestleMania 10 was one of those defining moments in terms of out with the old, in with the new, And then, we're only a couple of years away from the Attitude Era. We're a couple of years away from the Monday Night Wars. Like, shit gets real interesting in wrestling shortly after this.
Yeah.
As I always say, we were eating good back then. We didn't even know it.
Yeah, it's like, you can't stay in the shallow end too much longer. You got to take the floaties off and go swim. And this was the mark of delineation as to, they got to go ahead and swim. Your draws were never going to be there forever. And now you're faced with the reality. How do you react? And I thought that I did make a note about Vince mentioning that, because I just thought it was really, prophetic in a way, just that, he was planning for the future, whether it was going to be successful or not, but he knew the challenge ahead of him and he was going for it. So.
Well said.
All said, boys.
Word.
So that ends our episode on WrestleMania 10. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate you listening. Apologize for being gone for 6.5 weeks, but we're back. We're going to try to be consistent. But fuck it, maybe we won't be. We'll find out. But
sometimes it's good to keep them waiting.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to just be guaranteed that it's going to, be there. And sometimes you just got to build and build and build and then walk it back just a little bit.
Yeah. So what are we going to be covering next week?
What's the other kind of fucked up sexual thing I came up with?
Oh. Okay.
No, vanity's enough.
Yeah. We're going to be covering 1985's The Last Dragon.
Show enough.
Leroy
is a whole ass vibe.
Oh man.
I'm looking forward to chatting you motherfuckers up about it next week. But thank you guys again for a wonderful episode.
Yeah,
as we slowly approach 100, we're chipping in on the
so
digits.
Close.
Chipping
if we
away.
didn't take so many fucking weeks off at its fucking time, we'd be 100 and something by now.
We might be at 563.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
Yeah.
There's only 40 WrestleManias, and we're about to be on episode 90 of Nothin Good. So
yeah.
How many WrestleManias have we actually technically covered?
No,
two.
I think maybe two.
Yeah. 2 or 3. I don't know.
That's scary shit. There's so many pay-per-views.
I'm just saying, guys.
We got 40 more years of this.
40 years down the road, and we're in the old folks' home, and we're just sitting there in our little podcast studio.
But we appreciate you guys joining us this week, and we look forward to seeing you next week when we talk about the motherfucking Last Dragon and the glow.
Nothing. Good.